I will call the Town Council regular meeting of Tuesday, April 8th to order at 7:11. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Peter Talbot.
Here.
Don Walsh. Here. David Belliver. Here. John Mylone. Here. Fiona Pearson. Here. Tricia Kramer. Here. Greg Wolf. Dina Allard. Here. And Jim Jinks. Here. Quorum is present.
Please join me in the pledge. As we begin our public communication this evening, unfortunately, it's going to start on a somber note. I'm going to call for a moment of silence. Since our last regular meeting, we lost two very popular, two very important members of our community. Ruth Podgwaite, who served on our Board of Education for 8 years. She was a English teacher at the high school. I was lucky enough to have her while I was at Cheshire High. She was an outstanding teacher and an outstanding individual. The second is David Wiley, who was an English teacher at Dodd Middle School. Again, these two individuals touched thousands of lives during their career. So please join me in a moment of silence to honor their memory. Thank you very much. In your packets, colleagues, there is the quarterly consent calendar donations. If you would like to peruse those are the people that are extremely generous to our community and provide funding for various extra projects that we do. On a happy note, and is Ms. Hitchcock here? Please. If you would go over to the podium to the left there, and yes. Speaking of educators that were at the high school when I was at the high school, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that we both started at Cheshire High School the same year, as a matter of fact. I have a certificate of recognition for Cynthia Hitchcock. Whereas Cynthia Hitchcock started at the town of Cheshire Public Schools in the year 1970, and whereas in these past 50-plus years, she served as physical education health teacher, substitute teacher, and currently serves as a paraeducator and an in-school suspension monitor. And whereas she was instrumental in establishing several sports programs at Cheshire High School, including girls basketball, volleyball, girls track and field teams, and whereas she has been a trailblazer of girls' high school sports within the state of Connecticut, and whereas she was inducted into the Connecticut Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, the Connecticut Women's Volleyball Hall of Fame, and the Cheshire Hall of Fame. Now, therefore, I, Peter J. Talbot, Mayor and Chairman of the Town Council, on behalf of the Town Council and all the citizens of Cheshire, do hereby congratulate and publicly acknowledge Cynthia Hitchcock for her years of service to Cheshire Public Schools, as well as her lasting impact on our community. Dated at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 8th day of April, 2025. Say a few words. Normally I have the recipient come to us. For this one, I'm going to come to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Just a few words. It's been the happiest time of my life being in Cheshire High School. It's been the greatest time. I love coaching, and I love being coached with all the people that I work with. I love the kids today. I'm going to be 90 next week, and I'm still going to be at Cheshire High School. Thank you so much.
And for the record, I think that is the first time that I called Ms. Hitchcock Cynthia, so I apologize for the lack of respect. Mr. Signorella, it's great to see you too,
Another
sir.
one of my students there. Nice to see you too. Well done.
I must have been there for more than 4 years. It seems like
I
I
think
have
so.
I've had every teacher that was there.
I was looking around to see how many former students are here. Enough. Thank you. It was well done.
Thank you.
What'd I tell you? I see.
With that, we'll move to item 3C, public comment. Anyone that would like to address the council may do so. The podium is there to your left, our right. State your name, address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is David Iomi. I'm a Cheshire resident at 65 Stony Hill Road. I'll be reading my remarks so that I can ensure that they'll be concise. In September of last year, I issued a Freedom of Information request seeking to better understand the issues that have occurred between the town of Cheshire and the Chesprocott Health District, which is contracted by the town to provide various health services. I issued a Freedom of Information Act request for the town to provide all correspondence between town council members and employees of the Chesprocott Health District between August 8th, 2023 and November 6th, 2024. About the same time, I issued a similar FOIA request on Chesprocott for any correspondence between its employees and the Cheshire Town Council. I have to say that I've been very disappointed with the lack of transparency displayed by both the Town Council and Chesprocott in their responses to this relatively simple FOIA request. The town provided for my review approximately 400 emails between Town Council members and Chesprocott employees. However, Chesprocott identified a total of 1,217 emails between their employees and the Cheshire Town Council members over the same period of time. The transparency issue I have with the Town Council is that apparently only a small fraction of the emails between the Town Council and Chesprocott employees were provided to me under the FOIA request. The transparency issue that I have with Chesprocott is that some of their emails between Chesprocott employees and individual members of the Town Council are being withheld because they are considered confidential and privileged. The question I have is why are Town Council members even corresponding with Chesprocott employees about confidential and privileged information? I'd like to share with you an email provided by Chesprocott that I did not receive from the town of Cheshire. It's an email dated August 29th, 2024, and it's from Jim Jinks to Hillary Norcia, the interim director of Chesprocott, and Darlene Makos, the Business and Human Resources Manager. The subject line is redacted. The message is, no worries about bothering me. Thank you for pulling everything together into one email. Plan is I will be appointed to the board at our next council meeting on September 11th. We're exploring other options, and then what's beyond that has been redacted. Signed, Jim. This email was sent to Chesapicot Director 12 days before September 10th Town Council meeting, where a vote was held to appoint Jim Jinks to the Chesapicot Board of Directors. I questioned the purpose of this email. I have gone to the Cheshire Town website, but as of today, find no minutes of the Town Council meeting held on September 10th, 2024 is posted. However, a review of the video of the September 10th Town Council meeting on YouTube shows that there are about 1 hour, 49 minutes into the meeting, a motion was made to appoint Council Member Jim Jinks to the Chesapicot Board of Directors. This was followed by another motion to table the appointment until the town attorney had a chance to weigh in. The motion to table was voted down, and a vote subsequently held to appoint Jim Jinks to the Chesapicot Board of Directors. The question that I have is a town council member that is also a voting member of the Chesapicot Board of Directors really in the best interest of the town? In the interest of government transparency, I'm requesting that all town council emails not already provided to me under the FOIA be forwarded to me now. Also, I'm requesting that the town initiate an independent investigation into the appropriateness of the relationship of the town council member Jim Jinks with Chesapicot. You can plan on hearing from me again after I receive the additional FOIA information. I have copies of three
Mr. Iommi,
supporting
that's your
FOIA
3 minutes, I'm
I
sorry.
just have one more sentence.
Yep.
I have copies of 3 supporting FOIA emails that I would like to leave with the town council clerk for inclusion with the meeting minutes. Hopefully, these will be published. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Is this the clerk?
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, I am Sarah Montavon. My address is 3 Colonial Court in Woolkit. I am a board member for Chesapicot, and I've been on since February of 2024. The reason for me coming today has to do with David. So I was helping with the FOIA request for this past week. Unfortunately, this has taken us several months to have all of these emails put together. While doing this, like he said, we told him that there was 1,217 emails that we had to go through, and because of litigious and confidential information in all of them, we could not share a lot, and it's been a very time-consuming process for us. Part of the reason that I am here today is just because although there are a lot of challenges going on with Chesapicot right now, we want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So we sent a letter to the town council about a month ago concerning the FOIA content and about meeting in order to be able to discuss some of these in privacy. And we have a legal obligation, not only to the residents of the 3 towns, but also to protect the citizens and the employees and all of the privacy. I just believe in transparency, and I would like for us to at some point have a meeting about this so that we can continue to move on and just basically go from there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Melendez. My address is 1425 Waterbury Road, Cheshire, Connecticut. I'm here to talk about the animals in the Cheshire Pound again. It's been 5 months, and while there's so much to say, the truth is there's been very little time and even less willingness from anyone on the council to work with us or just answer basic questions. Still, even though you refuse to answer, we will continue to ask because the public deserves the truth. One of the questions we had this month is, why did the town council contact Cheshire Academy to remove signs that we put up? We've been told repeatedly not to mistake your silence for not caring, but it isn't just your silence we're concerned about, it's actions like this that speak volumes. We know that the town council asked. We have texts from Cheshire Academy that they removed them because the town said that they were political in nature. I don't know how saying justice for the Cheshire 32 is political, but that's what happened. When one of you tries to silence us and nobody speaks up, that silence is collective. And that collective silence is also culpability. It's actions like these that make it crystal clear that you don't just disapprove of our group, you dislike us. You've dismissed us as biased simply because we believe in accountability, transparency, and justice, even when that means calling out employees of the Pound or the town council itself. But that kind of oversight should be your job. Since you won't do it, it'll be our job. You also promised transparency. You committed to daily updates on the town website. Those updates are often late, just like now. There's been no March update. And given the history of incomplete or missing records at the municipal pound that we've seen under our FOIA request, how can the public even trust when those updates are written? They're not written daily. They're all entered at the end of the month. Despite all the attention the issue has received, the pattern of neglect continues at the pound. One of the most disturbing witness statements came from a groomer in the DOAG report named Tessa. She confirmed neglected dogs, overwhelming smell, urine, everything that we've talked about before, but she also described something equally as horrible. She described that they had gone there early in the morning, and about 2:30 she needed to use the restroom. And the ACO said, "Be careful, there's a box in the restroom. There's a bird and a rabbit in it." Then another ACO said, "But there's no holes in the box." And she immediately went to put holes in that box. Later that day, they opened the box and those animals were dead. It's this kind of continued behavior that really is appalling. I mean, no one knew how long they'd been in that box. The two groomers came at about 9:30. That box was already there with no holes. Could have been from the night before, and they were gone, likely from suffocation. Close to that box was a bloody squirrel in a cat crate. No rehabbers were called. It was 2:30 when they noticed that
Ms.
squirrel.
Melendez, you're at time.
Okay,
I'll give you a couple minutes to wrap up.
thank you. I appreciate that. 32 neglected dogs, 2 dead dogs, a newborn puppy that we had no records of. None of this was ever reported by the animal control officer. Every concern, every vet visit for declining care was reported by others, forced into the light despite repeated defections and denials. This is not something Cheshire should ever be proud of, and this is not anyone who should be working with animals.
Ms. Melendez, would you stay at the podium for a moment, please?
Sure.
So you broached the subject, and I was going to bring it up if you did not.
Perfect.
I am not a big Facebook user. I do post occasionally. Even less so the Cheshire Community Forum. Usually when I post on the community forum, it's because someone has informed me that there is information there that I probably should go look at, and it may be helpful if I respond. I received a call Saturday morning that there were posts allegedly made by you, and since you're kind of quoting exactly what was said in those posts, I will assume, because the post did have your name, and it was replies to a budget post that was made by Councilor Allard. It was not Councilor Allard that called me Saturday morning. So do you recall making replies to Ms. Allard's post on a Friday of last week?
I responded to a post about budget, and then Ms. Allard said, "I don't recall seeing you at the meeting," and I said, "Wow, that sounded like snark," because she had asked me a question about what I felt about the budget.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
that
so-
there were about 3 posts that were made.
Sure. I thought you were going to talk about the, what I was just talking about, why you took the signs.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to
perfect,
talk about.
perfect.
Because you're quoted in your post as saying, "And while we've been told not to mistake the council's silence for not caring, we know that Mayor Talbot asked Cheshire Academy to remove our signs. Prove it.
I have a text.
What's your proof?
I have a text from Cheshire Academy.
Okay, I would love to see
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Could you leave it with, can you screenshot it and send it to me?
I can absolutely,
Because I can tell you
yeah.
that the statement, Mr. Talbot asked Cheshire Academy to remove our signs, is an outright lie.
Okay, so I want to be accurate. If you had heard what I said here, so they said the town, and I said Mr. Talbot. But when someone said, you assumed it was Mr. Talbot, my response was, you have directed this council to not speak to us. So when one of you on the town council calls Cheshire Academy and says to remove signs that we put up because they're political, you act all together in unison. So one of you did. I'd love to hear who it is, and then I will apologize and say, no, it isn't you, Mr. Talbot. It was one of you, but I have the text that says it was the town. and
I
I'd be
would,
happy to
I
send it
would
to you.
love to contact the individual, and maybe you and I can visit that individual together and find out what the actual truth is.
Yeah, and-
Because your post as it stands on Facebook right now is a lie. Because I did not, nor would I ever try to remove someone's First Amendment rights by telling them to take down a sign.
Like I said, I didn't make that up, but I'm happy to show it to you. I can bring it
All
up
right,
and show it to
thank
you
you.
right now.
And while we're dispelling lies, you also posted at the beginning of paragraph 3, we couldn't even participate in budget discussions because we've been told the town would not speak to us regarding anything related to the pound.
Yes, I have your emails.
You weren't told that you could not you participate in these meetings and participate in our public comment sections. We have public comment at each one of our budget meetings, and the public is welcome and encouraged to provide input at those meetings.
Did you not say you would not communicate with
So-
us in an email?
Yes.
Ms. Allard said not
So-
only would she not communicate with us about the pound now, she said, I won't communicate with you about any future pound because you're biased.
Go ahead.
Melendez. First of all, I would just like to say for the record that I most certainly did not ask anybody to take down signs. I was not aware of any signs, and I would not do that. I don't believe anybody on this council would do that. Also, I did not say that I would not speak to you. In fact, I would argue that out of everybody on this council, I've been the one to outreach and speak to you. I've been the one willing to actually participate in conversation with you. What I said was that with respect to best practices for the pound, for future decisions with respect to the pound, I don't believe it is within the town's interest to collaborate with your group, since it is my opinion your group is biased. That doesn't mean that your information is wrong. It doesn't mean that your information is bad. It is also not saying that you are bad people, right? I would argue, as I said to you, I believe that I am biased. I happen to work closely with these council members, and therefore, I'm more likely to believe what they might say. I am also the wife of a police officer, so I am more likely to believe what a police officer might say. That is by definition bias. What I said to you, and I stand by my words, is that I will support the town of Cheshire establishing best practices in accordance with nationally accredited associations that are affiliated with the process of certifying an ACO officer. They are the ones who are completely unbiased in this situation. They don't have an emotional connection to anything other than what the national standards are. I appreciate and applaud your activism. I consider myself an activist as well. I have said to you and other members in your group that please do not mistake our silence as not caring. Those were my words. I would like to communicate with you in a respectful way. However, it needs to be truthful. It needs to be truthful. This investigation could not end sooner, soon enough, in my opinion. We need to get to the truth of what happened. But I will not stay silent when I feel like I am being misrepresented.
Okay, I at least want to respond to that. One, we have been truthful, and I can show you that we spoke to Nick, so that's.
There are two untruths with, which I just pointed out.
I had
So
eye
here's-
surgery, I can't see,
look,
that's
you-
why I moved
you-
this way. Uh-huh,
You said that you were told that you couldn't participate in budget deliberations or
I was
whatever
told
the.
that you wouldn't communicate with us. That's what I was told. I have the emails.
It says, we couldn't even participate in budget discussions because we've been told the town would not speak to us regarding anything related to the pound.
Yes, I stand by
What
that.
we said was, there will be no comment on the dogs that were housed at the animal control facility from 2022 to 2024 while the third-party independent investigation was being conducted, which has nothing to do with budget deliberations. So I would appreciate it if you wouldn't take our words and twist them for your own narrative.
Yeah, again, you sent an email to me that said you wouldn't communicate, and I sent an email back to you and said, what does that mean you won't communicate? You didn't respond. Now, Miss Allard responded to that email saying just what I said. So it's very hard to try to have the public I spy what the email really means. I have sent you many, many emails. When you say you won't communicate, I finally believe you. And when you say that we're not telling the truth, you guys got to look in the mirror. There are a lot of things that you have said that are not truthful, beginning with all the dogs went to good homes. I don't want to have a tit for tat here, but I do want to respond to Miss Allard, who said that we are biased. You are our representative. If you're not going to talk to us, that's viewpoint discrimination. How do we even get representation if you're not going to talk to us about the thing that's most important to us?
If you look at exactly what is happening, we have, first of all, the initial no comment was because of two ongoing court cases, which prevented us from speaking. And now, because of the integrity of a third-party independent investigation, which is ultimately what your group has been asking for, we cannot comment, and that's all you've been told. So thank you, Ms. Melendez.
Mr. Chair, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
There's a lot of emotions going on, both sides. I mean, this has been a topic for 5 months, like Ms. Melendez said. Can we get a time frame for when this investigation, just so these people could understand it? I think we're owed a time frame. They're owed a time frame because we're kind of muted, and you know, it's time that, you know, it's been a few months, and I just would like to get some idea of when we could expect this.
Thank you.
I don't have the answer to that. It's something I can inquire about.
I'd appreciate if you can get back to us on that as soon as possible, just so we can all know. I mean, that's all.
With all respect, Mr. Welch, I don't want to rush an investigation to meet a deadline. I want the investigation to include everything that it needs to do to get to the facts of this case.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. But I also, if we could just have a time, is it going to be 5 months, 6 months, 8 months? Just so we have a timeline so that everybody knows, okay.
To the best of your ability, if you would get that to us, and we can get that out to the group as well. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Malone.
One other thing, and I've been silent here as well, and for the reasons you stated, and uncomfortable about it, because I would like to get to the bottom of it, as everyone else would. But I am uncomfortable that someone on the council might have reached out to a third party to ask them to do something.
So am I.
For the record, I want to say that I have not. I hope all the council members will put on the record tonight whether they have or have not, because Dina had the opportunity, you had the opportunity, Peter. I want to make it clear that I would have never done that, and I did not do that. So if everyone else is comfortable doing that, I'd like to see them do it.
We'll come right down the line.
I did not and would not have done that, ever.
I definitely did not do that and would never do that.
Never do that. It is a First Amendment right.
Ditto. Did not do that, would not do that. It's preposterous to think that any of us would.
For the reasons I stated earlier, same reasons. It's your First Amendment rights. I would never take them away.
I didn't even know there were signs on that property until I was accused of, having them removed. I did not do that.
I am so grateful for this opportunity to finally defend myself on one thing that I'm being accused of in this 5-month ordeal. I had nothing to do with signs being taken down. I'm a true supporter of First Amendment rights, and I also had no idea the signs were there.
And I will get an answer from Mr. Wolf.
And if I could just add, because,
Yeah.
I mean, if the implications of the town, I checked with multiple departments, any that could possibly have any governance or say over signs, and to a person, nobody asked for any to be removed, for the ones that I checked with at least. So.
And with that, back to public comment. Thank you.
Great. Hi, Dawn Burnell, 32 Flintlock Road, North Haven, Connecticut. I'm not here to rehash the torture the poor dogs endured at the Cheshire Pound, but I am here to talk about a path forward. I urge you to do the right thing here. I have much of the same information that all of you have, and it's quite damning that not only the ACO, but her supervisors, the chief, the town attorney, and all of you, it's not easy to admit culpability and to admit mistakes were made and to articulate a clear path forward so the horrors that happened at the Cheshire Dog Pound never happen again. It is essential if we are to move forward with integrity and purpose. The group of folks here continue to show up because we are not foes. These are folks like myself who want accountability and real change. Rebuffing any input into the future of the pound is not the way to go. On any other town project, you would welcome input. I know that all of you are volunteers. I know all of you want to do the right thing. And the fact here is that this issue has been brought to light by advocates that should be viewed positively. Cheshire continues to receive negative press, and these folks are not going away. And by rebuffing these well-researched input and constructive feedback makes me question whether you truly want input. I ask you to engage with the group so that meaningful change can happen. Advocates are not your enemy here. I hope you realize that we both have the same goal in mind, which is that the animals of the dog pound should receive the treatment and care that they deserve. I implore each of you to do the right thing. Let's turn this dark chapter into a catalyst for positive change by admitting mistakes, holding those accountable, and committing to meaningful reforms. We can together ensure that the Cheshire Dog Pound becomes a place of safety and care, a place where no animal has to suffer again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Catherine Nugent, 95 Pound Ridge Road. Monday, April 1st, about 2:40 p.m., a neighbor alerted me to a sick and wobbling skunk in the street. I witnessed it walking in circles and wobbling down my driveway. Excuse me. I called the non-emergency police line at 2:58 p.m., and they connected me directly to the ACO line. It went right to voicemail stating, "Our temporary hours are 8 to 4 p.m. Leave a message and that she would call back as soon as she was available." I made mention in my message of my concerns because there would be 12-plus kids coming home shortly. I called again at 3:16 PM, letting the dispatcher know that the skunk was still all over the road, in and out of driveways, and across people's lawns. At 3:30 PM, a police officer arrived and hopped a stone wall with me to help track the animal. Unfortunately, it had wandered into a driveway with all kinds of cars and car parts. He explained to us he couldn't get a clear eye on it and that we should alert the homeowner, and if anyone sees it again, to please call the dispatcher. At 4:53 PM, the sick skunk came back over the wall and back into the cul-de-sac. I relayed this information to the dispatcher and left for the evening. My neighbors called me to tell me that the police officer had returned and took care of the skunk. The following morning at 8:55 AM, the ACO called me. She immediately started asking me questions about the skunk and where it was. I quickly shut the conversation down as I thought it was silly. Even if the officer had not taken care of it the day before, how would I know where the skunk is 18 hours later? I said we were all set, it was taken care of. She then asked if a police officer had come out, and I said yes, and it's all set, thank you. And she said, well, I left early yesterday, and I wanted to say your voicemail failed to reflect the fact that you were leaving early for the day, but I did not. She ended the conversation by saying, and no one from the police department relayed to me that they had come out and taken care of the issue with the skunk. I simply said, that is between you and them, and I ended the conversation. I have called ACO several times over the years for wandering raccoon in the middle of the day while people were in my yard, for rabid skunks at the bus stop, oddly enough, 2 years in a row in the month of February. Never has the ACO actually answered the phone. In the case of the raccoon and the skunks at 2 different times, I worked with a police officer. In the case of the 2 skunks, it was a police officer that came out and put the animal down. I'm curious if the ACO is issued a phone by the town, and if so, why aren't the calls to the office forwarded to her phone? And I also want to make mention that I brought blankets and sheets down to the ACO last summer. Prior to going, I was told if the door is locked, leave them outside. When I arrived, I tried the door. It was open, so I walked in. There was a woman in there, not the ACO. As I asked where to put the items, I was overwhelmed by the smell inside that facility. I left the items where she instructed me to, and as I left, I asked how she could possibly stay inside that building with that awful smell. She mumbled something that I could not make out, and I quickly headed for the door. I wish I had thought better of it at the time and further inquired why a facility would have such a stench that awful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there, my name is Jim Block, 60 Contour Drive, Cheshire. Back again. First, I want to mention that I do appreciate that nobody on this council told Cheshire Academy to take the signs down. That's certainly encouraging, and I think Mr. Malone and Mr. Walsh, I want to thank them for providing a timeline here, or at least going towards a timeline, because it would be great to see this dealt with and concluded. It's been 6 months approximately, and most of my comments are directed, sir, at the mayor. Other than reasons, excuses, legal issues, the awful truth has not come out and been shared with residents. Same personnel, police department, same people in the police department, same ACO who performed so poorly in the past continue to run animal control. It takes nothing away from the police officers on the road. I've made are great and effective, but this was a disaster. I'd like to read testimony from public information from the DOAG site that Jean got from her FOIA requests. These statements are from an ACO who did indeed exhibit courage and testified to DOAG about the horrors of animal control in Cheshire. I believe them to be authentic as they were obtained from the file section of their website, and they were the state report. This is all spoken from the state animal control officer's perspective. On 7/9/24, I met with Krasinowski. She gave me permission to use her name. She stated that she routinely works with Cheshire Animal Control because Prospect does not have their own pound. She is used to bring dogs there for holding, but she stated that she has not been happy with the level of care provided and has stopped unless she had no other option, and then it would be only for the very short term. Krasinowski stated that on 9/17/23, she was at the pound and noted that one of the dogs was bleeding. When assisting to inspect the dog, it was noted that her nail had grown through the paw pad and was bleeding. Their words, not mine. She stated that she instructed ACO Lyler to take the dog to the vet immediately. The dog was taken to Central Hospital. She was diagnosed with an infected ingrown dew claw. Vet clipped and cleaned the area and prescribed antibiotics. She stated that the previous to her grooming in May 24, she had witnessed ACO Liler hosing the kennels down with dogs in them. She saw her pour bleach in the cage and then hose it down again. I called her K-Now, stated that she had told Liler, ACO Liler not to do that and advised her on all the potential skin issues it would cause. Krasnowski stated that she was very distraught about the conditions of the animals. She stated that he reached out to the Cheshire Town Attorney, who is not with us tonight, and informed him of the conditions, but felt like she was being ignored. Krasnowski stated that she felt the conditions of the dog was so bad when she was there in May that it was the level of cruelty, and as an animal control officer, she had a duty to report. Mayor Talbot, I'm asking you to please stop the silence of the council. I'm just hoping it almost seems to me like progress has been made tonight. There's a sense of a dialogue, a movement forward. I would hope that that report will be posted or at least read to people. And that's basically all I have. I thank you for listening, and please make that report public when it does come available, and then you will not have to hear from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Block.
Hi, good evening. Karen Buell, Cheshire and Westbrook. My beagle was about 6 years old here, about a year and a half ago, was bit by a pit bull. I went to call the cops, so the cop came out. He went to their house. This pit bull's been loose for the whole time they rented where they were. And across the street, attacked my dog, almost got my son's ankle that has 2 plates and 12 screws in it. So the cop came, we went to the vet. He was bit in the hind leg and under the eye. So got stitches, everything antibiotic. About 2 days later, I heard from the ACO, and I asked her to go there, and the woman that owned the pit bull said, I work for a vet. He's licensed and got his shots and everything. About 4 years he hasn't had his shots or license. And this dog has been a constant complaint of the neighbor next door and running into our condos and harassing other dogs. April did nothing. I called her, he's loose again. April did nothing. Called her about 10 times. He's loose again. And if he bites somebody else in my family, you're gonna have a problem. She has a job in Durham also as an ACO. I sell gas stations. I know people out there. She has too many jobs and not enough time for concern. So I'm really upset that she never did nothing with the pit bull. I prayed to God they moved, so they did get evicted. But other than that, her care sucks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Buell.
Good evening, Holly Fontaine from Vernon, 35 Elizabeth Lane. April is Animal Cruelty Prevention Month. For people who love animals, work and advocate for animals every day is animal cruelty prevention. Among the 32 dogs taken in, a dog named Red, later changed to Poppy by April, was a favorite of hers. She actually took that dog home. While at the pound, he had a playpen in her office, a large cushion in his kennel, while the other dogs only had a kitty litter bin. This is why 2 things can be true at once: neglect to others, but cared for her favorite, Poppy. April made a conscious decision to give proper care for Poppy while allowing the others to deteriorate right in front of her eyes. She had a moral, ethical, and legal responsibility as an ACO to care for all the dogs in her care, not just one. She consciously knew exactly what she was doing when she gave complete care to Poppy, but chose to neglect the others to a point of death. When she wouldn't care for all the other dogs as they sat in feces-matted hair, urine-scalding skin, and the only interaction was a hosing of the kennel down with bleach while the dogs were in them, Poppy received care that every dog should have received that entered that pound. That was her job. If she couldn't care for all the dogs, why care for only one? Clearly, she knew how to do her job with care as demonstrated by Poppy, but she chose not to provide proper care to the others. As a nurse, I would never dream of caring for patients unequally. I'd be fired and I'd lose my license. What April demonstrated was a complete breach of her professional duties as an ACO. She saw them suffering because of her negligent behavior and lacked the total absence of concern to the animals' needs in her care, as she consciously chose to care for only one. You all stated you are animal lovers. Knowing what I have just stated, I have to ask you, would you allow April to care for your pets while you were away, knowing they're voiceless? Doesn't any of the allegations that we have been talking about for the past 5 months leave you concerned about the care she gives at the pound without supervision? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fontaine.
Good evening. My name is Lori Russo from Berlin, Connecticut, 39 Plum Hollow Way. April is Prevention of Cruelty to Animal Month. Animal abuse in Connecticut has risen 37%, and every day animals are dumped, maimed, tied to posts, found dead, or hoarded. Here in Cheshire, we don't have to look far. Abuse happened right under your roof by people sworn to protect them. I'm not just talking about the ACO. I'm talking about Lieutenant Miller and Chief Drive. Chief Drive stood in front of you and said everything was fine when it wasn't. Maybe if he'd walked across the driveway more than a handful of times over the 2 years, he would have seen what was really going on, but he didn't, and neither did Miller. Your town attorney ignored repeated concerns. His law partner in court dismissed questions about the dog's food, care, and grooming as a fishing expedition. Is that what we get when we hire bargain lawyers? Don Walsh, in March of '24, you said you visited the pound after a complaint and all you smelled was wet dog. What you actually smelled were dogs hosed down in their kennel while their kennel was being cleaned with bleach. You laughed it off. Didn't it occur to you that the highly respected volunteer who came forward might have had a legit concern? Now the pound is being babysat by the DOAG. We're likely the only town in Connecticut where that's necessary. You had to be forced to run the pound the right way, with health checks, cleaning schedules, and accurate records. The ACO had 27 years to learn their job. This shouldn't have been an issue, but it was because you allowed it. The DOAG reports were inaccurate and late. Her numbers never matched the police intake records ever. And no, she's not chasing beagles. Her case logs show that if she handles 2 calls in one day, that's considered busy. Most days it's 1, if that. So what does she do? People call, get no response, and complain publicly. Even now with an empty pound, she disappears. And the police end up doing her job, and they do it better. They also do as many and often more calls than she does in a month. And taxpayers are paying for Leeler, Miller, and Drive, who all failed. The DOAG even applied for a warrant against Leeler, but she got a free pass, and her supervisors still choose to keep her. Ling's son killed 2 dogs and got 5 years in prison. Leeler caused the death of 2 dogs. Another was claimed to be stillborn, but there are no records. For 2 years, she neglected, delayed, and refused medical care, recommendations for 32 dogs in the pound, to the point of being considered outright abuse. Yet she still has her job.
Time, Ms. Russo.
Just one sentence. The cold reality is Leeler's treatment and lack of care is worse than what Ling's son did. She should have been arrested. She should have had her license pulled and lost her job. And we wonder why animal cruelty cases are up 37%. And see you next month.
Thank you, Ms. Russo.
Oh, sorry. Carol Ann Setter, 57 Rosemary Lane, Cheshire. I was very disappointed that the Department of Agriculture didn't charge the animal control officer, who is supposed to care and follow the laws. And by the consent order between the Department of Agriculture and the town of Cheshire, she hadn't followed the laws. I'm not surprised, because back in 2006, I would file a complaint about abuse of my father in a local nursing home, which no longer exists. at the time, scratches down his shoulders into his back. The nursing home took photos, said they would investigate, took my father to the ER the next day, told the doctor, and showed him the scratches. The nursing home did nothing. I filed an abuse case with the Department of Health, had proof from the nursing home that he didn't have those scratches when he came into the nursing home. Well, if they're not gonna, they did nothing, and if they're not gonna do something for an 80-year-old World War II veteran, how do we expect the Department of Agriculture to protect a four-legged creature? And as far as the wildlife, I've been looking on the web, and I found out that the dog warden, if there's a raccoon and it's found dead and it hasn't been attacked, the canine control officer is supposed to come and help remove it. Well, I had that happen 2 years ago, and I called the dog warden. She told me to put the raccoon in a bag and throw it in the garbage. Well, at 70 years old, I couldn't pick up this raccoon, and I didn't want to touch it because I didn't know if it was rabid. So I got somebody to put it in a bag and take it away. She didn't even bother. I mean, come on. That's part of her job. And then I also found out that she not only works in Cheshire, but 2 other towns. Is the town of Cheshire paying her full-time while she's at another location? Or are those towns paying her? So is there any way that we can find out what her actual hours in Cheshire and the hours that she works in these other 2 towns? Because as a taxpayer, she should be putting her 40 hours a week in the town of Cheshire, and when people call, she should be available. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Marina Bagliori, 1191 Meriden Avenue, Southington, Connecticut. So I have a lot of question and concern. So back to the forum page where it's council member Diane Allard asking question and call us Bayas. I want to know a question about this. So this is, in dictionary say with people who has one site and usually we cite not correctly. So you telling us in front of everybody, so our version is not correctly. So we take information. Hold on, let me finish talking. I see you upset, so the same as I am. So you telling us what we providing wrong information because you want to using national association, so our records coming from ACO, local vet, Department of Agriculture. So you telling us what this information was submitted and being witnesses is not correct. So maybe it's time you tell us what's correct information and what's exactly happening in Cheshire Pound. Is this dog didn't been neglected? Nobody died? No evidence? If you have any other evidence, maybe you want to tell us for the last 5 months, because evidently we're not saying a true or only show one side of the story. So somebody need to know another side of the story. So maybe you can tell who takes sign or call Cheshire Academy and take our sign. Do we know who did? Because none of us done, but somebody take our sign and tell it's town did this. So we want to answer question. My another concern about Cheshire Pound. So we have new ACO who've been hiring November, December. It's nobody knows what's your name, when she been hiring, what's your education, what's your, any status about her. And still, it's nowhere. What is your hours, if she worked with ACO April, if she trained her? Is it any, when she working, are we both sitting and not answer the phone? Because if you go on Cheshire Forum every day, dog lost, nobody wants to call ACO because they're afraid. I personally been involved as a beagle, but I think so everybody in town of Cheshire know. We've been lost every another day. We're running the property, we're biting people. This has been going on. How come nothing been done about this story? And a couple weeks ago, dog been lost at night. And again, police department and the ambulance was running to chasing the dog. Where is our ACO? Two ACO. Now we have ACO April and assistant ACO, and we're paying them large amount of money according to the state budget. So, and we increase for assistant ACO, we increase your pay by $10,000. So who is working and when working? Is it not a public knowledge to all Cheshire residents and everybody know what we schedule, who working, who is not working, why we're using?
Time, Ms. Baglieri?
Can I finish my sentence?
Yes.
So I want to know why police department and ambulance using to chasing the dog and ACO.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Bagliori, 1191 Meriden Avenue, Southington, Connecticut. Best Friends for Life Animal Rescue. We're here to talk to you all again. I don't know. You've heard all the facts. The facts are pretty open. It's pretty clear that something tragic happened and lives were lost. I want to just get back to the basics because it's not really all that complicated. I mean, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I mean, the judgment of any community is how it treats its animals. I mean, if this were to happen to three children died in your school system, will it have been treated the same way? I mean, this is blatant neglect, and the people continue to hold their jobs. You know, and I'm not asking anybody to be fired. That's not up to me. But the thing is, there's a problem. A major tragedy occurred, and it's just seems to be trying to be brushed under the table. It's blatant corruption. I mean, it couldn't be any more obvious than that. I mean, the private investigation is a great idea. The timeline is a great idea. I'm glad that Mr. Walsh brought that up because these poor people these people aren't going to stop. I mean, animal rights, we are the voice of the voiceless, and these people will not stop. You can't bring these poor people out here every month while you look the other way. If it had been children, would you also look the other way? Because that is what the town is doing. Does that show Cheshire as a really great community? I mean, you're all volunteers, and I get that. And that's, you know, but you also have, as a volunteer position, you make choices that affect people's lives. So you have an obligation for dignity, respect, and excellence. You have to answer to yourself. You have to answer to God. You know, you have a position. And I don't know what else to articulate on that, but Ms. Allard, I believe it is, you just told everyone that you're biased. You openly admitted that you're biased. And that, great, that's truth, right? That's truth. It has to be, right? And your husband's a police officer. You cannot be not biased, but are you biased in favor of a corrupt police department? Because that's what we're seeing here. It's very obvious. But that is what the town is standing behind. And these people, they have all this evidence, and you finally responded to us saying you're worried about who said, he said, she said about cardboard signs. Is that what you need to respond when this kind of a tragedy has happened? And these people still have their positions. Taxpayers are keeping this going. You're worried about he said, she said, some paper signs. A major tragedy happened here. I mean, I think that you'd want to respond to some of those things. I don't know. I hope things improve, and I don't know all your positions, and I apologize if I'm saying something wrong. But like I say, you do have accountability, and if nothing else, to God and to yourself. Right is right, and wrong is wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Baglieri.
Thank you.
That's your time.
Hey guys, I'm Mariah Melendez. I'm at 1425 Waterbury Road. My mom and I started this advocacy thing together. And I just want to say a few things about our group. First and foremost, we are a group of people from all walks of life. Not one of us, I think, believes the same exact thing. We are not a group of people who have it out for specifically one person just because we feel like they have wronged us. My family in particular, we are a law enforcement family. My father worked over here at Big Cheshire for 22 years. So in no way are we here because we hate the police, because we want to see, we think that the police are corrupt. That's not why we're here. My mom's a lawyer. She fully believes in the law, and she raised me to be passionate about justice, be passionate about these animals, to be passionate about anything. She raised me to be passionate, and all of us are passionate. All of us feel like something bad happened here and something that was, not legal or not, however words you want to put it, something wrong happened. And, the words that are said on Facebook or wherever, behind closed doors, in front of closed doors, at the end of the day, we're all just here because we're upset. I know you guys are probably upset too. I know we've probably said some things that have made you guys upset, and I get that. I've worked with you guys when I was a reporter. I get that you guys work a really hard job, and I would never want to take your position because I understand that your job is very hard. You guys have to sit up there and take it from us, and that's a hard thing to do. But at the end of the day, we're not here because we have anything better to do. We're here because we care. And I appreciate you guys moving the needle a little bit tonight. I think we did get some good things out of you guys, and I really appreciate you hearing us. But at the same time, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And at the end of the day, we're not going to stop until that work is done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melendez.
Just wanted to respond, Mariah, because I know we've had many conversations over the years, and I appreciate your words. And I know we've all spoken tonight that we feel your passion. We know your passion. As Councilor Walsh stated, this is something that is very important to us and all of us, right, in terms of making sure that there is an objective investigation, which is why we've moved forward with that. I apologize. I'm sure we all apologize in terms of a timeline if that has not been clearly communicated to you. It's been unclear to us, quite honestly, because the investigator is trying to do this right. It's important that the investigator do this right, and that we get all the facts. And so that is what is happening at this time. And when we do find out, when we receive information about any potential timeline, and again, we're not going to rush this, right? Because we want to do this right. We don't want to rush this, and we want the big picture, right? We want to understand exactly what happened. And that's going to take some time to gather this evidence. We have what you have sent to us, so it's not like we're ignoring your emails. We see your emails, but we also understand that to not compromise this investigation, we need to, unfortunately, be silent at this time. And so if it comes off as uncaring, that's not what we intend to communicate, not a single one of us on this, this dais right now. So I thank you for your words and appreciate it.
Good evening. Thanks for all this time to let us all speak. I'm here because there's an issue that's emerging, and it's transparency. I'm going to pick up where Mr. Iommi left off. I have here a letter dated April 17th, 2024, from former Health Director Mara Esposito to Mr. Jim Jenks, who was on the board but was not on, who was on the town council but not on the board of directors at the time. For Chespercott, as Mr. Michael Milone was still there. In this letter, Ms. Esposito talks about being able to have more documents for Mr. Jenks that evening. And then she goes on to talk about a former employee and his performance. Mr. Jenks was appointed to the board on September 10th, 2024. And so perhaps he was an ex officio member. I did notice in the minutes of the meetings from Chespercott, he had begun to appear as a guest or a observer, but I did not see that he was on the board in any capacity. So as Mr. Milone was still representing Cheshire at that point, I have to wonder in what capacity Mr. Jenks was there and why he is receiving confidential personnel information about a former employee if he was there simply as a private citizen. Mr. Iommi asked last September for correspondence. To date, there are 1,277 documents that are still outstanding, being redacted. Nothing was redacted in this letter. So I have to wonder what's going on. A couple of other things that are lacking, and it goes to what we're hearing tonight, and also what seems to be a slow response to Mr. Iommi. At the time that the Republican-led board voted to leave Chesprocott, it was understood that there would be an MOU issued, Memorandum of Understanding. I'm just wondering, has that been completed? Likewise, when Mr. Jenks was appointed to the board, Mr. Walsh made a point of order and asked for an amendment to the appointment, requesting a review of potential conflicts of interest. That was defeated 6-3, and Mr. Jenks was appointed with the promise that there would be a review of any potential conflicts of interest. I'm just curious, has that review been done? And I believe it was Mr. D'Agostino, I'm sorry, I'm totally mangling your name. But at the time, it was you who said you asked them to table, and then you would review, and the board went ahead and appointed anyway. So I'm done, but I don't think, I do think there's more to come from this issue and from Chesprocott. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. Anyone else? Going once? Thank you all. Item number 4 is the approval of minutes, and there were a couple meetings that we have minutes from. The minutes of March 11th, the minutes of March 18th, the Town Council Budget Workshop of March 20th, the Town Council Budget Workshop of Tuesday, March 25th, the Town Council Budget Workshop of April 1st, and the April 3rd Town Council Budget Workshop. I will, assuming there are no omissions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve. By Ms. Allard and by Ms. Pearson, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Motion passes 7-0 and an abstention. 701 of those present. Thank you, Ms. Kramer. On to the consent calendar, Mr. Jinks.
Be resolved, the Town Council approves resolution number 040825-1, consent calendar for April 8th, 2025. Be it resolved, the Town Council approves the consent calendar for April 8th, 2025 as follows. And there's an approval of tax refunds in the amount of $28,218.85.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Velber. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item number 6 is items removed from consent calendar. There are none. We go to old business, and item A is the school building committee update, which means it's Mr. Gussenberg time. The one good thing about having so many meetings over the course of the past month is that I was able to pop into one of your meetings. So I am not going to tell you to thank the committee because I've already done it in person, Mr. Gussenberg.
And I'm sure you found it truly exciting.
I was very happy that I was able to say it to them face to face. So I appreciate you being the messenger, but it's always better to do it in person.
Good. Few items. The committee itself, at its last meeting, approved a funding for a contract for the school district to hire a group to do demographic and redistricting. It will be about an 8-month process. They're going to update all of the demographic information, make sure that the prospective number of students that are coming in over the next few years that were portrayed in the previous demographic study is online, and then we'll put together several scenarios. I believe the contract calls for 3 possible redistricting scenarios that'll then be reviewed by the Board of Ed and eventually approved, so that well before the new schools open, parents will know which school their children is assigned to. In terms of the projects themselves, Norton School, the foundations are all in. They're in the process of getting ready to start pouring the slabs, and that was actually scheduled to begin tomorrow. I don't know if the rain has held that up a little bit, but the concrete trucks will be coming in very quickly. It's beginning to get exciting. I walked through the other day, and you could stand there and say, this is where the CAF's going to be. Over here is the gym. This is the first grade wing. So you're beginning to feel that. The steel is scheduled to come in sometime, I believe, next week, and we should start seeing towards the end of April the steel going up. So Norton's moving along very well. Over at the north end, they are continuing to work on the foundations, and I'd say it's about 2/3 finished there. A lot of site work going on at the north end in terms of all the underground utilities, the driveways, things like that, and the geothermal wells are all dug. So both projects are on schedule right now and due to be finished in July 2026. We've had conversations with the school district about the timing and the process of moving. There are also 2 committees that are just getting up and running with the school district. One will focus on FF&E, the furniture and other equipment, and the other will focus on technology. And those are, once again, the architects will work with them. Packages have to be put together. We have to go back to the state to get approval on those. And so we're want to get out front on that process so that we can go out to bid in the fall for all the FF&E and the technology. And that's where we're at.
Questions? Mr. Walsh?
Thank you, Rich, appreciate that. And I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for maybe Sean. Somebody had mentioned to me about sidewalks on Marion in front of the new school that weren't going to be part of the package, and so some of the new developments across the street from the school, the kids would have to be bused. Do you know about that, or is that?
Well, I can turn it over to Sean in terms of what the construction, when we went to planning and zoning, there was a lot of discussion about sidewalks. We can do sidewalks on our property. And so there are sidewalks going up Jarvis from where the driveway comes in for the kindergarten preschool program up to the corner of Marion. There are sidewalks that come from the north driveway on Marion to the edge of our property. So that a student who is walking from Courier Woods can walk in. A student, if sidewalks were extended, could come from one of the subdivisions on Marion and come down. Now, in terms of extending those sidewalks beyond our property, that would be up to the town.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we had that as part of.
Yeah, I know that the Jarvis Street extension all the way down to Moss Farms is, actually, the package is ready to be bid. I know the town engineer has been working with property owners along the road there to secure any necessary easements or trying to do so. And I'll have to follow up in terms of the extensions off of the property on Marion Road. I just don't know the current status. I'd need to talk to Merrick first to just see what has been designed. I know it's more complicated on one side of the road versus the other, and in terms of how much space is there, it may be still under review, but.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's a busy road too, and
Sure,
it's a scary road for kids to be walking across. So I don't know what the answer is, whether you put a light, flashing light or something to crosswalk, but, you know, we had just discussed the cost of busing in an earlier meeting, and I don't know how much more that adds to the cost of busing for those kids over there that are basically across the street.
Yeah, Don, just to say, at the planning and zoning meeting, Vince Massiano and Jeff Solon got up and said, unless it was absolutely safe, unless the sidewalks were there and we felt that it was not a dangerous situation, we will guarantee busing. Right. And, yeah, so.
Mr. Mylone.
Can I just follow up on that? The sidewalks along the Jarvis Street side, though, they extend all the way to our eastern property line of the town property, right? We're not stopping them at that driveway.
We are going from the driveway up to the corner of Marion. There are sidewalks across the street, and there'll be a crosswalk.
And those go, so why are we extending sidewalks all the way from up Jarvis if there's sidewalks across the street, Sean? And why aren't, I'm just curious, why didn't we extend them along the frontage of our property if it was part of the school project and it's funded?
Yeah, I don't have a map in front of me, but right now, there are sidewalks that run along Jarvis. There's one small piece that was missing between the entrance from Courier Woods and where the sidewalk was. And that's on the other side of the road. The feeling was people coming from Marion and that area would come up to the crosswalk and over. When we talked to the police, they also wanted a sidewalk that would run up to the corner of Marion with a crosswalk there that you could go south on Marion and possibly come from Courier that direction also. In terms of Marion Drive, there was no purpose in running a sidewalk all along the entire school site because there's no housing right in there. If they were coming from any housing, it would be from the northern part of the land, and therefore we ran it up the sidewalk, or up the driveway, the northernmost driveway, and then to the edge of our property. So anyone coming from one of the subdivisions to the north of the school would be able to come down that sidewalk to the building. But there was no sidewalk run along the front of the school.
But Sean, didn't you just say that we're planning to build a sidewalk from the Moss Farm subdivision all the way up? So why would we pay that with our budget when it should be paid for with the school budget along their entire frontage? I just want to make sure it's coming out of the right pocket here, because
I would have to confirm with Merrick, but I know that the bulk of it's a long length that's not our property from the edge, at least from the edge of the property to Moss Farms Road. How far it goes onto the property, I just have to confirm.
Could we just confirm, because I mean, first of all, we're getting 50% reimbursement
No, we're not.
here. Huh?
If you run sidewalks along the road,
No,
it's
I'm not talking, I'm talking about along our frontage. Our frontage goes substantially east of the driveway. The frontage of the school property goes substantially east of the driveway. If we're extending sidewalks to the Morse Farm subdivision, continuing to the east, I think that should be up to the eastern property line of the school property. A lot of that is along wetlands, and I agree, there's no housing right there, but if we're trying to get people from Moss Farms to this, I didn't realize that before. I'm just asking that we make sure that we're not expending money on those sidewalks out of our budget that could come out of this project's budget and be partially funded, that's all.
I want to just clarify that my understanding is we do not get reimbursement for sidewalks. That piece of land between the road and the school site is considered not part of the school property.
Oh, so we're building them, but they're not reimbursed, the sidewalks?
We can build them, but it won't be reimbursable.
I didn't know that, so, okay. So
That's
it's
my
in-
understanding.
It's in the project budget, but we get no reimbursement for it?
Right, yeah. There are a number of things that come up in these projects that are not reimbursable, and that I was,
Well, then it may not matter as much if that's
Yeah.
the case, doesn't matter.
so it's coming out of the same pocket one
It's
way or
ours either
another.
way, but I'll confirm either way so you know the source of funding.
Okay,
I can confirm
thank
with Merrick, but I think that
Peter,
I have the same understanding that Rich has.
You talk about a new demographic study, that's not a building committee project. You said that's being initiated by the
That was
board.
something that came from the school district, and there was some discussion about whether that was the responsibility of the building committee or of the school district. It came about because of the building of the new schools, and because the new schools are both larger than the buildings that they're replacing, and therefore redistricting will be necessary. So the committee was presented with a proposal, and the committee eventually decided that they would fund that study.
When you say the committee, what committee?
The construction committee, the building committee.
So the building committee is funding a demographic study, so it's only going to be limited to the two schools? It's not going to discuss any other growth in town?
No, it is a full demographic study that will then lead to a redistricting plan. So in order to do redistricting, you have to know where all the new construction is going to be in town, how many students are going to be coming from each area, and then take a look at, each of the district lines. So if you look at where Highland students are presently, and then like I live down in the south end of town, my children went to Highland. There's a question now, would that continue or would that be redistricted over to the new Norton School, since that's a larger building that's being built to replace the old Norton School. So it's a full demographic study of the entire town and the growth rates that we're going to see over the next several years, so that when they do the redistricting, it'll be hopefully a long-lasting redistricting and not something that you turn around a couple years from now and say, one school's overloaded, one school is not.
And that was in the school building committee budget?
There is money within the budget that we could fund that, yes, that we have accounts that allow us to do some outside evaluations and studies. So, yeah, that we were able to fund that within our budget.
It just seems to me that's a Board of Education function, not a school building committee function who's focused on.
As I said, that
construction
was
of
a
two schools.
topic of conversation.
I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm
Yeah,
just
that
feel
also
that's-
will not be a reimbursable.
I just think that's something that should be a Board of Education study, not, you're focused on construction of two schools for us, not redistricting the town, but just an opinion.
Mr. Velaber and then Ms. Kramer.
Thank you. And thank you again for coming in and giving us these updates. My question for you is just because someone asked me this, so I have the opportunity to ask you. Is there a contingency plan? If there is, what is the contingency plan for example, if one and/or both of those schools are not open and ready at the time, in time for the opening of the 2026 school year?
Well, to my knowledge, at the moment, there's no specific contingency plan. Dr. Solden and I have had conversations. He rolls his eyes whenever I bring it up. We've been assured that we're on schedule. There are numerous things that could happen, and I've been in school districts where we've moved into buildings that weren't completely done. We have had situations where we delay moving into a school until later in the year. So at some point in time, probably this time next year, we will have a very firm idea whether those buildings are going to be done or not. So far, we're staying right on schedule. But yes, there would have to be a contingency, but I'm not aware of any specific plans right now.
Thank you.
Ms. Kramer?
Hi, thank you for being here again and giving us all the facts. I don't know if it's this time of year, but we all have one foot firmly in like the budget lane. So I have a question for you regarding equipment moving from one school to another, furnishings, desks, anything portable being removed from one school. Do you have a percentage offhand? I'm sure it's in a budget somewhere of what can be reused, what will be being reused, and what is being bought new to furnish these new buildings?
That's the committee that's working right now. There is a budget in each of the two schools for all of the furniture and other equipment that is needed for those buildings. There's obviously some materials that are going to come from the present classrooms, and Vince Massiano is working with the staff to go through and determine exactly what's going to go. In fact, there's a walk through Darcy tomorrow morning because they have a lot of very specialized furniture and equipment. So the architects and some school people are going through Darcy tomorrow morning, taking a look at all that. So it's ongoing, and I don't have any specifics at this point.
But equipment is being reused. We're not starting from scratch. There's not a huge budgetary heaviness of all new desks. We're repurposing.
There will be a large number of new desks, chairs, things like that, but that, as I said, is just begun, that process. So I can't tell you exactly, how much or, exactly what's going to be done. But yeah, the budget essentially lays out to build brand-new schools with largely new equipment, furniture and equipment.
What happens with the old equipment that isn't
That
reused? Is it
becomes,
sold? Is it
that becomes
auctioned?
the ownership of the school and the town, and anything that's not used, that, you know, no longer is deemed to be usable, can be sold or scrapped or whatever. You know, the same with the buildings. Obviously, Norton is going to be taken down. You know, the other two schools will still be there, and the town's going to have to make some decisions about what to do with those buildings.
I don't see us not selling stuff.
I just hate to see it in a big pile out front.
Exactly, and it's probably still there.
It sounds like he was in high school for about 12 years.
I
He
was
can have
gonna
one of
say,
those.
yeah. I spent all my time in high school. I had every teacher. Anything else? Yes.
Can I just follow up? I have a real-time update from our town engineer. Both the Marion and Jarvis sidewalks have been designed. On Marion from Balsam all the way to the entrance, and from Jarvis from Moss Farms up to the entrance. They're ready to go. They're bifurcated in the bid to see what the pricing is. So America is hopeful that we have enough funding for all of it. But we'll know that once we have the bid pricing in the next few weeks. But we do have those both fully designed and ready to be bid. On the Marion Road side, the sidewalk would extend from Balsam mostly along the west side of the road, and then crosses right pretty much in front of the entrance to the school. And I know he worked with a number of folks to get that design in there. So your point, obviously, about, you know, flashing lights or whatever you'd need there to make that a school safe. But you do want that crossing, I think, closer to the school, where it's naturally also more visible and people are aware they're in a school zone coming from either direction. But sure. Yes.
Could we just do a little evaluation as to the one on Jarvis, as to whether or not the cost associated with the frontage along the school property could be applied to that? Maybe they have room in their budget to still pick it up, whether it's reimbursed or not, so we don't have to take it out of the town's budget. Could be a few hundred feet, I don't know. I mean, we're just looking at everything, and
Yeah,
they have a
that's-
massive budget. It would be a change order, but I'm sure it might be able to be fit in with their budget for the school, as opposed to the town funding it directly out of our.
I'll confirm with Merrick and ask that, yeah, at a minimum, on a linear foot basis, we could just charge that portion to the account. if that's
The
what we get.
sidewalk along Jarvis that runs on the school, on the edge of the school property, is in our plan.
I think the question is, though, from the entrance on Jarvis, east towards, towards Moss Farms. I think what John is saying is correct. There's no sidewalk planned in the construction. The town is, the project that Merrick is putting out to bid covers from the entrance on the school property to Moss Farms. So John's saying just that portion, could that portion that is east of the entrance, you know, to the early education side of the building, and then down to the border?
Yeah, we'd have to talk.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, why would we do that? I mean, it's not changing the project, it's just changing the pocket of funds that it comes from. But they,
We're not gonna be adding anything to their budget to do that, it'll fit in their contingency budget, and we're taking it out of the town budget to do it, so why would we take whatever money out of the town budget to do something that could fit in the contingency budget that we've already funded?
but I don't understand why would a school district have to, I'm concerned about the precedent this sets in terms of now making our schools responsible for sidewalks that are under the purview of the town traditionally. So I don't understand the precedent that would be.
It's along their frontage, they just made an executive decision when they were designing this, not to put the sidewalk along the rest of their frontage. He said that they have every right, within the parameters of their responsibilities, to put sidewalks along the entire frontage.
I would just like to put it on the record that I don't understand why, and I feel that the sidewalk should be under the purview of the town budget. I don't believe that's something that's necessarily the responsibility of schools, any schools. If we were to add school sidewalks in front or near any of our schools in town, that would still be under the purview of the town, because I believe, as you had stated, that property is managed by the town, that strip between the school and the road is
No,
actually.
the school maintains the sidewalks in front of their property like any other property owner does. So the schools maintain, in terms of like clearing snow and whatnot.
Right.
The town does not do that. No, the schools do.
So the schools are those sidewalks are the responsibility of the
Correct.
school, so the construction of those sidewalks would be the responsibility of the school generally?
On school property, it's probably been a long time since we've done that. But I would say, I mean, from my perspective, either way, they're both honestly bonded capital projects. So whether it's coming out of the school budget, reimbursement would be another story, but if it, and I
There's no
believe Rich is correct that there's no reimbursement. We have bonded money for sidewalk extensions that we approved in the council last year and the year before, and we have bonded money, and in fact, we did a specific appropriation for the Jarvis Street extension last year too. So the source of funds is the same either way, honestly, it's bonded funds. But it is true that there may be current budget capacity within the overall two schools budget, as things stand now, and hopefully stay that way. So ultimately, it just becomes a policy decision of which budget you'd like to come out of.
If I could just, jump in, the sidewalks that are being built are there because planning and zoning required them. Our original plan did not have any sidewalks running from Jarvis up to Marion or from the corner of our north driveway to the north part of Marion. Those were all required by planning and zoning. And they looked at the movement, they looked at where students would be coming from and said, and to get approval, that we want these sidewalks, and we added those in. They wanted the sidewalks coming all the way down what is our bus entrance to the building, so that somebody coming from the northern areas of Marion could come down those sidewalks and down to the building. The fact that there was no sidewalk running across the entire front of Marion was discussed at length, and there was a feeling by planning and zoning and the committee that that wasn't needed, and it was a cost that we shouldn't incur. So it wasn't something that the committee just said, well, we'll build here, we won't build there. It was a matter of 2 or 3 meetings and some fairly extensive conversations with planning and zoning to determine where those sidewalks would be and how much of it the school district would put in. And we pointed out at that time that it was a non-reimbursable expense, but it was part of the requirement of planning and zoning to put those in.
Thank you. That makes sense, and I understand it. Since the town has decided that we want sidewalks all the way along the frontage of Jarvis Street to a substantial subdivision to the east, it's just a question of where that comes out of. As Sean said, I guess they're both bonded, because we bonded for the sidewalks, Sean? I wasn't just.
Yeah, I'm almost certain, unless, yeah, Jim, that would have been bonded, yeah, for something that,
So,
like that.
now, but it's just, it's just money that we're spending out of the town side of the budget that could fit into that. It's definitely an allowable part of any development project to require frontage along their sidewalks along their frontage. It's not uncommon, it's not unusual. It's just, and since the decisions were made to build them, if we could save some money by taking them out of your budget, unfortunately, I think you've got some contingencies that you're going to use at some point, and hopefully not all of them. It might be helpful, that's all.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Mr. Gussenberg. Appreciate your monthly visit. And old habits die hard, so please thank the committee for me as well.
Will do. All right. Have a nice evening.
Moving on to new business. Item A is the acceptance and appropriation of $4,979. And don't forget the 84 cents from the National Opioid Settlement Funds to the Human Services Special Revenue Account for the continuation of the opioid remediation plan as approved by the town council. Mr. Jenks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the town council approves resolution number 040825-2. Be it resolved, the town council hereby accepts and appropriates $4,979.84 from the National Opioid Settlement Funds to the Human Services Special Revenue Account for the continuation of the approved opioid remediation plan.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Allard. Discussion, Mr. Jenks.
Sure, this is another payment to us, to the town. This is, I guess, the Walgreens, settlement with Walgreens. This is bringing us to, I think, a total of a little over $260,000 over the last 3-4 years. And these funds will be used for counseling services through Human Services.
Questions regarding the resolution on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item B is the call for a public hearing concerning the amendments to Section 2-86 of the Beautification Committee Ordinance. Ms. Allard.
Chair, be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 040825-3. Be it resolved that the Town Council shall hold a public hearing at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, to consider the following amendments to the Section 2-86 Beautification Committee Ordinance.
Motion and a second from Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Just simply a call for a public hearing, so not much discussion, I don't believe. And seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Item C is the call for a public hearing, the amendments to Section 2-66, Parks and Recreation Ordinance. Back to you, Ms. Allard.
Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 040825-4. Be it resolved that the Town Council shall hold a public hearing at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, to consider the following amendments to the Section 2-66 Park and Recreation Ordinance as follows.
Mr. Velleber gets the second this time, and again, this is simply a call for a public hearing, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Moving on to item D, the amendment reinstatement of the volunteer firefighter pension plan. Ms. Kramer.
Ready? It's a long one.
Yes.
Okay.
You can pick a good stopping point that
All right.
makes sense.
When I run out of breath,
There you go.
or when people start to leave. Sounds great. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 040825-5. Whereas, name of employer, Town of Cheshire, State, Connecticut. Whereas the town sponsors the Town of Cheshire Volunteer Firefighter Pension Plan, the Volunteer Firefighter Pension Plan, and whereas Code of Ordinances, Section 2-131E, provides that the Town Council may adopt and amend retirement plans at any time, and whereas in accordance with Section 6.1B of the Volunteer Firefighter Pension Plan, the town has the right to amend such pension plan at any time and to any extent that it may deem advisable. And whereas on May 9th, 2023, the Town Council first amended and restated the Volunteer Firefighter Pension Plan effective July 1st, 2022, to reflect Town Council Resolution Number 121322-8 as approved by the Town Council at its regular meeting on December 13th, 2022, and the rest is as follows. Okay.
As presented, it will be attached to the minutes.
As presented, and it will be attached to the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. By way of discussion, this is an item that's been on and off our agenda for a few months now. And Mr. Kimball, if you would like to.
Yep, I'll be very brief. It's a relatively small change, but an important one to the firefighter pension for our volunteer firefighters. To summarize, back in July of 2022, when we made our last series of amendments, effective July 1 of 2022, to the plan, we included language that was requested from the Volunteer Firefighters Association to include a break in service, being able to use your prior years of service. If somebody was a firefighter maybe in their youth and moved away and then moved back to Cheshire and decided they would like to be a volunteer firefighter again. Again, we were trying to limit the barriers to entry as we very much encourage folks and use this opportunity to encourage everybody to consider becoming a volunteer firefighter in our community. But we added language that would allow you to bridge that gap in service if you had left and then come back, and then your years of service would be compounded. However, it was raised and raised in conversations with collectively, between the town and the firefighters, that we didn't want to be subject to the potential for someone coming back for only a month or two and then bridging that gap at the new higher, now $30 monthly benefit amount, even if when they left before they were at maybe a $10 or a $15 amount. So we mutually agreed to amend the plan to now include a 3-year commitment when you come back. So if you want to be eligible for bridging that service, so all of your prior years are at the new $30 or somewhat higher as the COLA adjustments happen going forward, you need to be here for 3 years in order to get credit for that in your new 3 years, and then you would be, all of your years would then count at that higher amount. So Jim, let me know if I left anything out, but I think that's pretty much it.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously by those present. Item E is the appointment of Labor Council. Mr. Mylone.
Thanks, Peter. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 040825-6. Be it resolved that the Town Council hereby appoints Rose Calor LLP as special labor counsel for the town pursuant to the attached agreement, and be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes the execution of an agreement for said legal services pursuant to the Town Charter, Section 5-1, and the terms as presented and discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. We have a motion from Mr. Mylone, a second from Mr. Walsh. Any, by way of discussion, Mr. Walsh, I know you sit on the committee, and if you would just kind of walk us through the process that you guys took. Mr. Mylone, I'm sorry.
Happy to, yes. So as we all know, we issued an RFP for a new professional services for Labor Council. Received a number of responses. The town manager's office, I believe with the Human Resource Office, reviewed those, boiled it down to 2 shortlisted firms. We had a selection panel that consisted of several members of the town council, assistant town manager, and the human resource director, and we interviewed 2 firms. Both were very highly qualified and would both been excellent choices, but there was unanimous consensus that Rose Calor was the best suited for the town, the size, the culture of the firm. Their approach to labor matters just seemed to go well with our community and was an excellent fit, and so that was the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mylone. Any questions?
I would just add, I want to just thank the planning committee for their hard work in working through this, and I think it's an excellent choice, and staff is very happy with the recommendation.
As Meatloaf once said, you took the words right out of my mouth. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. Yeah, it's been a long night already. Item 9 brings us to the town manager report and communications. The monthly status reports are in your packets. And Mr. Kimball, if you would give your report.
Yes, so the monthly status report is in your electronic packet, but I'm also handing out a paper copy, in part because I did attach both the bond rating reports we received from Fitch and S&P. So I did want you to have a physical copy of that, just a little easier for reading, and so those are making their way down the dais here if you don't want to look on the laptops. But I'll start with that. Again, I'm very pleased to report the town received reaffirmation of our AAA bond rating, which is the highest rating available on our recent issuance of $40 million of municipal bonds and $20 million of bond anticipation notes, largely for the financing of a 2 new elementary school project. The ratings follow interviews, presentations that were conducted with both rating agencies on March 20th, during which the meeting, Jim Jascott, Andrew Martelli, and myself presented on the town's fiscal health and our borrowing capital plans for the future. Receiving a AAA bond rating ensures the town is able to finance the construction of all major capital projects at the lowest possible borrowing cost. And for more information on both ratings, please see the aforementioned attached final reports from both rating agencies. The Cheshire residents are able to dispose of their household hazardous waste at no charge through the Regional Water Authority's program for the 2025 season. Again, that's located, as a reminder, on 90 Sergeant Drive in New Haven. This starts on May 17th and will continue through October 25th. That's Saturdays only from 9 a.m. to noon. Proof of residence and an online pre-registration is required, and please use the links that are there in the report. Just a reminder, I mentioned this last month, but with spring break now upon us next week, there are some great events being offered by Cheshire Parks and Recreation that are sure to fill up. April 12th, the Cheshire Lions Easter egg hunt. April 15th, the fishing derby at Mixville Park. April 16th, the Mixville Muck Run, which my 10-year-old son is signed up for and very excited about. April 17th, Touch a Truck at Bartlam Park, and also April 17th, the Gentle Easter Egg Hunt at Bartlam Park. More information, please visit Cheshire MyRec. Up next, in partnership with the Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire, the Cheshire Public Library will be hosting the 4th annual Cheshire Repair Cafe on Saturday, April 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is an effort to reduce what goes into the landfill. Volunteers provide free repairs of household items. Fixers are available for sewing repairs, knitting, crochet repairs, jewelry cleaning, bicycle tune-ups, small appliance repairs, tool sharpening, furniture repairs, and addressing computer problems, among many others. Attendees are responsible for providing any necessary parts and for transporting their items to and from the library, but we encourage folks to attend. We are still in the elderly and 100% disabled tax credit application period. Again, just a reminder, the filing period is from February 1st to May 15th. The income thresholds and credit amounts are available on the town assessor's website. And for more information, please visit the website or call our assessor's office at 203-271-6620. We have begun, starting yesterday, the Public Works Department is embarking on the annual street sweeping program. Operations will begin in the southwest corner of town and will progress throughout town, sort of in a counterclockwise fashion per the map in the report. Residents can assist the Public Works Department by sweeping sediment from sidewalks and into gutters and moving parked cars, which will interfere with the sweeping operations. Sweepers cannot pick up brush, branches, or yard waste, and please refrain from discarding them in the street. Sweeping operations are expected to be completed by mid-June, weather permitting, and please feel free to consult the town's website for any additional information. All right, we are also, state law provides for the Renters Rebate Program. This is a program that provides reimbursement for Connecticut renters who are elderly or totally disabled and whose incomes do not exceed certain limits. Persons renting apartments or room or living in cooperative housing or mobile home may be eligible for this program. Rebates can be up to $900 for married couples and $700 for single individuals. The rebate amount is based on a graduated income scale and the amount of the rent and utility payments made in the calendar year prior to the year in which the renter applies, in this case 2024. The application period is from April 1st through September 30th for eligible residents. Specific documentation is necessary to be provided at the time of application, and those applications should be accepted for Cheshire residents by appointment only. This is by our Human Services Office, so please contact Kristen Cherry at 203-271-6690 for any more information. On to a little bit about road paving. We have two major road reconstruction projects will be happening sort of simultaneously, East Johnson Avenue and Industrial Avenue. For Industrial Ave, this will be under construction for approximately 3 months. This is the remaining section of Industrial Ave from the culvert, well, really the entire section from the culvert that we rebuilt. This commences this week on or about today, April 8th. Construction will be between Highland Avenue and Sandbank Road. Work hours will be Monday through Friday between 7:30 and 4, and the contractor shall endeavor to conduct work to ensure the least practical interference with traffic and maintain at least an alternating one-way traffic operation for access, and the properties will be maintained. Same applies for East Johnson Avenue, which will be under construction for approximately 5 months, commencing on or about April 28th, and that will be between Highland Avenue and McCausland Court. The same regular work hours from 7:30 to 4 p.m. Another exciting event later this week, Police Perspectives event will be held at the Senior Center. That's on Thursday, April 10th at 2 p.m. Cheshire Police Department will be holding a traffic safety discussion at the Senior Center. The topics will include enforcement, what to do if you're in an accident, what to do if you're pulled over, and many more related topics. Registration is required, and there will also be a drop your drugs table for safe disposal. And other than that, we have our May regular council meeting scheduled for May 13th. But as you turn the page, you will see we also have a number of budget workshops. Those continue to move around just a little bit. And we have one this Thursday, which we encourage folks to attend, both a 6 o'clock public information session and workshop here in council chambers, as well as a 7:30 meeting over at Arts Place for the Recreation, Arts Place and Pool budget. And so with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Just a quick question, and I'm sure you have the right date, but I'm just clarifying. The May meeting's on a Thursday? It says May 13th, and I'm not on here, it says Thursday, May 13th. So I'm just curious, is that supposed to be Tuesday, May 13th? I'm not looking at my calendar, so is the Tuesday? The 13th is
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It's always a Tuesday, so
No,
it's
that's why
Tuesday. Tuesday, May 13th.
Wasn't sure which was right, the date or the day of the
Correct.
week. Okay,
Looks
thank
like a
you.
transposing error from.
No problem at all, so it is the 13th, thank you.
I have just one thing too. Sean, you mentioned about the RWA doing the hazardous waste. They have done satellite places in other towns. I know I've asked this before, but can we try to request to see if they can do one or two in Cheshire sometime?
Yeah, I think they do, if they do sort of try to rotate those through and it is by request. I don't know that they would do two, but we'll certainly ask. But if we could at least get one, I know that'd be a convenience for our folks, for sure.
And one other thing, just on the economic development report, there's some exciting things in there. So the one thing is our friend Byron Rondo has taken made another huge investment in this town, buying more property up to West Johnson. So kudos to him and congratulations on his restaurant and how well he's doing there. And we appreciate him investing in Cheshire, because what he has done up there is probably the reason why we're doing so much other development up there. The other thing is the comeback of Hickory Hill Orchards, and I love seeing that. It's going to be an orchard. It's going to have a little store in there, and I think a lot of people, this could be another attraction that people will come to Cheshire for. So I appreciate the owners of that bringing it back as well, so thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, two things. I just wanted to congratulate Sean, Jim, Andrew, the entire finance department for securing the AAA bond ratings from both firms. That, as we all know, but the public needs to know, what a huge deal that is for us, because it saves us a lot of money when we go to borrow money for capital projects. And actually, I have a question for our town clerk / webmaster. Sean talked about the link for the tax credit. Is there any way to get that moved to the front page of the website until the deadline, just so it's easier to find? I think that would be helpful to residents. And those are my two comments. Thank you, Noel, appreciate it. We talked about the status reports. Item number 10 is reports of committees of the council, starting to my left with chairman's reports. Ms. Kramer.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Allard?
Yes, the Ordinance Review Committee met on Thursday, March 13th. We discussed the two items that were discussed earlier on the agenda, one to the Beautification Committee ordinance, and then the second to the Parks and Rec division. But we also discussed the Public Building Commission ordinance, and we were not able to solidify anything to be forwarded to the council as of yet, but just wanted to let you know that we are working on the process of trying to streamline the current process, and hoping to have our town attorney draft a new ordinance that can be reviewed and worked on with the ORC.
Thank you. Mr. Jenks?
My report is we have 4 more meetings for budget, I believe.
Ms. Pearson?
Nothing to report.
Nothing for miscellaneous. Item 11, appointments, liaison reports again. Back to my left for Ms. Kramer.
I wanted to take a moment, since Karen's here, I just wanted to thank you for being so accommodating to my health needs and meeting me on Zoom, sometimes during lunch. I'm much better during the daylight hours. I also wanted to give you credit for the amount of the incredible amount of work that you do constantly for the environmental spaces in Cheshire. A few things that I wanted to bring up to the council. I know it's budget season, so I'm not going to bring up the fact that, money is necessary to maintain all of our land that we have not only bought but been given. Some of it is in disarray, but most recently, Karen has gone on walks, you've gone on nature walks to identify some invasive species and to highlight some native species. And the time of year it is, being spring, now is the time to act on that. I know there are other issues that we may be able to address in the years coming forward, but one thing I wanted to mention to the whole council, and maybe we can put it up on the website, is I think a great asset right now for spring. People want to get out. As many volunteers as can come to the Environment Committee to help enact working the property that we have to keep it maintained, safe, and usable. And thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Ms. Allard?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Jinks?
Yeah, the water pollution control meeting, just want to report that the plant manager described the plant as functioning very well and efficiently. Obviously, there's the I&I project or I&I study going on still. I think there's a few more weeks left of that. I think we're still waiting for a big rainstorm, though, to really see the flows, but that's kind of where things are right now.
Ms. Pearson?
Energy Commission, we talked about actually the energy conservation and savings plan that we're reviewing in terms of the ESCOs. We've heard the presentations from all three companies, Honeywell, Johnson, and Ameresco, and we will be meeting on Monday to hopefully make a final decision. On Parks and Rec, the mayor and our town manager were present for the presentation of the James Nankin Park and Rec Award winner. And so congratulations to Tim Orcutt, troop leader in town, who with his troop members have very successfully engaged with Parks and Rec and John Galwick and supported their work there. And so it was a pleasure to be there. And congratulations again to Tim Orcutt.
Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. The Town Beautification Committee is continuing their tree planting. They have about 12 trees that will be planted from North Brooksvale all the way up to Cornwall. Most of them are on the east side of Route 10. There might be one or two on the west side, but they're all excited about getting them done. If you go drive up and down the road, you'll see little yellow flags in front of the lawns where these trees will be planted by Cheshire Nursery, so they're keeping it local. So that's good. They also approved some signage. For those of you who like Chipotle, Chipotle's sign was approved, and they will have a drive-through. So there you go. Thank you.
Mr. Velber?
No report.
And Mr. Mylone?
No report, Peter.
Thank you. I do have some appointments this evening. I did have communication with Mr. Velber regarding appointments, and since Mr. Wolf is not here, I get to recreate my role as a pointer. I have 4 appointments. These are all to the Youth and Human Services Committee, and they are all 4 youth, 3 youth appointments and 1 renomination. The first is Patrick Latore to Youth and Human Services Committee. It's a new appointment, follows the term of Mackenzie Dudek as the Cheshire High School representative. The second is Nora DeChico, Youth and Human Services Committee. New appointment follows the term of Eliana Orlinsky. Term of office is 4/8/25 to 1/31/25. Those dates also are applicable to Mr. Latore. No, it's 25. It's, that's right, yes. No. Thank you. Somebody's got to keep me on my toes. That's what you get for doing them at the last minute. Okay, so that's that one and that one. 1/31/26. Second high school, yes, high school rep. Lizette Santiago, Youth and Human Services Committee. New appointment follows the term of Lindsay Dusek. Term of office is 4/8/25 to 1/31/26. And Ms. Santiago is the Dodd Middle School representative. And finally, the reappointment of Nilan Kathir to Youth and Human Services Department. And term of office is 4/8/25 to 1/31/26. And Mr. Kathir is the private school representative. So I will thank you, Mr. Veliber, for the second. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor. Motion passes unanimously by those present. Thank you all. Town Attorney's report. We are blessed to have Mr. DeAgostine with us tonight.
And I'll be brief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report.
Thank you. We appreciate that, too. 13 council communications, letters to the council. Mr. Veliber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to read into the record a letter I think we all received in the mail a couple weeks back, and it was mentioned by one of our public communication speakers tonight. So I just want to, it's a letter from the Chesapicot Health District dated March 12, 2025. Dear Town Council members and mayors of Prospect and Wolcott, please accept this letter on behalf of the Chesapicot Health District Board of Directors listed below. We are coming to you as private citizens of our towns and in good faith as whistleblowers with critical information about certain town council members and CHD employees. We believe this information raises significant concerns regarding the integrity and credibility of the actions of the CHD board and strongly suggests potential unethical behavior. As outlined in the certified letter sent to Attorney Brigham, the CHD BOD expressed a willingness to collaborate openly with Attorney Brigham and the towns to address the concerns and questions raised in the investigation. We tried to show this critical information related to the investigation in our letter to Attorney Brigham, but he refused to speak with us as a group. Unbeknownst to the Board of Directors, a private citizen in Cheshire made an FOI request to obtain copies of correspondence, including letters, emails, and notes between CHD employees and individual members of the Cheshire Town Council between August 1st, 2023 and November 6th, 2024. As a result of this request, the Board of Directors received 1,217 emails in a CHD BOD executive session meeting held on February 20, 2025. The undersigned BOD members reviewed the content of these emails. Confidential information contained in these emails can address the issues raised in the vote of no confidence letter. 1, CHD employees, 2, Board of Involvement, and 3, lack of transparency. Our hands have been tied in disclosing this information due to our legal and ethical obligations to protect confidential information. As it relates to the statement regarding confidential information, we'd like to speak with you and the town attorney in confidence to show you the 1,217 emails. These emails reveal the issues that the Board of Directors collectively and by unanimous vote have had to deal with it within the past year and a half. All of us as volunteers are committed to public health in our local communities where we live and work, committed to the CHD mission, and committed to the reputation and restoration of the Chesapicot Health District. As a group, we look forward to speaking with you further, and the town attorney respectfully submitted Lauren Backman, Elizabeth Norman, Sarah Montavon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Anyone else?
There were 2 emails, we all got them though, I mean, regarding the budget. I don't know if you want to just put those into the record, or?
I think there were actually,
I
there were
think
3.
we, go ahead. Yeah, we can do it tonight, because actually, I'm going to ask the council to, what's that?
3 there, Noel, or 2? That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, this is both.
Yeah, these residents made an effort here, and I think, you know, their opinions should be, I think we all read them, but it's worthwhile to make sure they're recognized.
I also wanted to beg people to keep sending them in. We put the comments link on the Cheshire Forum, and I had to amend it. What was it again, Peter? Comments?
Comments at cheshirecT.org, because the .gov would not work.
Peter, Peter, if you don't want to fully read them in, at least, would you at least acknowledge the individuals who sent them in? For the
Yeah, no,
record tonight?
let's read them. We've read others, I think it's
They're
appropriate.
long, but it's fine.
That's okay. I'll take a deep breath. The first is, dear council members, what an enormous task you have ahead of you deciding on this year's budget. What an awful predicament our community faces, one that plenty of families are facing too. As a retired individual on a fixed income, I shiver to think of the financial tough times ahead for everyone on all fronts. I don't want to see any services or programs cut, but realistically, I know some must be cut in order to ensure that vital services continue to be provided. You are in the best position to know what those are. There is one service that I hope somehow we can be kept in the budget, the every other year bulk pickup. We do what we can to dispose of our bulk. We contact the folks who pick up metal. We bring what can be reused to charities. We take advantage of the town's recycling events, and we have even used 1-800-GOT-JUNK. But I look forward to the bulk pickup every other year to take care of what cannot be disposed of in any of those fashions. And according to my unofficial understanding, this fall is when a bulk pickup would take place. Thank you for giving bulk pickup consideration for this year's budget. Karen Tamara, 131 Chipman Drive. And just for the record, we are going to do monthly bulk collections that will be at the transfer station. At least that's what we're considering as part of the.
If approved in the budget, that would be
Yes.
the plan. Yeah, that's what's in the current proposed budget.
Right. Thank you. The second letter is, dear members of the Cheshire Town Council. I'm writing to you as a longtime educator and a mom, someone who lives and works in this town and cares deeply about the things that make Cheshire a great place to live. Like so many others who chose to move here, I was drawn to Cheshire because of its reputation for safety and strong schools. In my opinion, public safety and education are the foundation of our community, and those budgets should come first. They're what keep this town thriving and help maintain the value of our homes. As someone who manages a household budget on a single income, paying $3,400 a month in rent, plus student loans, medical copays, and day-to-day expenses, I know what it's like to have to make hard choices. I've made changes where I can, shopping at lower-cost stores, buying in bulk, using less disposable stuff, making my own cleaning supplies, and cutting down on utilities by using less heat and electricity. None of this is glamorous, but it's necessary. I think that kind of thinking should also apply to how the town manages its budget. Some costs are fixed, yes, but others can be controlled if we're willing to make smart, intentional choices. If we're going to commit to fully funding the fire department, the police, and our school system, and I believe we should, then we have to look at other areas where we can cut back. Here are a few suggestions that could help save money without sacrificing the services we all depend on. I am sure there are items here you may have already discussed. Review vendor contracts for services like maintenance, landscaping, and supplies. Make sure we're not overspending where we don't have to. Go more digital and cut down on printing and paper use. I used to teach in a district where every teacher got one full box of copier paper for the whole year. We made it work, less waste, more mindfulness. Take a closer look at town and school-owned vehicles. Are there any that could be retired or replaced with more efficient options? Could we optimize routes or reduce idle time to cut fuel costs? Cut energy use in town buildings. Can lights be turned off more frequently? Can buildings take advantage of natural light? If schools and municipal buildings already have motion sensors, let's make sure they're being used efficiently. Additionally, is there a way to reduce operating costs by encouraging remote work where possible? For example, if some staff could work from home on certain days, we could keep buildings closed longer and cut energy usage. Boost sustainability efforts, especially in the schools. In all my years working in Cheshire Public Schools, I've rarely seen any focus on Earth Day or environmental awareness. I'd love to see our schools lead the way on this. use less paper, stop selling plastic water bottles, and teach students to care about the environment. It saves money and it matters. Lean on, there you go, Ms. Schnitzer. Lean on community partnerships. We have so many great people in town who are eager to help. Local volunteers and nonprofits could take on some of the beautification work or help run community events. Use data to spot inefficiencies, not as a punishment, but as a way to better understand where resources are being underused or where there's room to streamline. And yes, town traditions like fireworks at Fall Fest, concerts in the park, the Memorial Day Parade, and even the Christmas tree lighting are wonderful. But in tough budget years, they should be considered non-essential. If we want to avoid raising taxes, and many residents have made that preference very clear, then we must be prepared to sacrifice where possible. Perhaps these events can be reduced in scale or frequency, or supported through business sponsorships and community fundraising. As a science teacher, I try to lead by example. I encourage my students to get involved, to understand how their choices affect the planet, and to speak up. I've tried to revive the CHS Environmental Club, support local sustainability initiatives, and push for common sense changes like cutting back on single-use plastics, even when I've been told it would affect revenue. I've met the people in town who are trying to move us in a greener direction. I just don't see that effort reflected in the schools yet. I know that balancing a municipal budget is never easy, but I do believe with transparency, shared values, and clear priorities, it's possible. And I know that the people of Cheshire, like many of us, are making sacrifices at home, can understand that. Thank you for your time and all you do for our town. Sincerely, Cheshire resident and CPS teacher.
Peter, did you mention her name at the beginning, just for, she sent it through an email, so I think.
What's that?
Did you mention her name, who sent that in, just for the record?
It was Irene Marguerite?
Yeah, I just.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The
Yes, I
environmental science
didn't,
teacher.
you're right, it's in the heading. I apologize, John, and it is there. Irene Marguerite, Margary. Thank you both for your input. Much, much appreciated. Which brings us to items for executive. There is no miscellaneous items for executive session, and we are going to forego executive session, but I would ask the council to indulge for a brief continuation of our budget discussion. So I would like to add an item to the agenda that is the continuation of the earlier budget discussion for a look at the mill rate calculator, which will put us in a better position to be prepared for Thursday night's meeting. And we'll stay here, and we'll just use the, yeah.
I thought there was a third letter. I just want to make sure everyone gets recognized. I don't know this person, but I just thought I saw a third one. Laura Lupoli. Was that already read in previously?
It was read previously.
Yeah, I think Peter
I read that at one of the budget meetings, I
Did
believe.
read this one in? Okay, I didn't
Yep.
recall. I just want to make sure. I apologize.
Yep, no, that's good. I want to make sure, too, that we're not missing anybody. So with that,
Yeah, so we can go either, I mean, if it's more convenient to stay here, if folks can see the screen comfortably, that's fine. If that's easier, Noah, could you just hit the display on, please?
So I believe, though, do I have to get a vote to add
Oh,
that
yes,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
agenda?
Should.
So, and it's not a resolution, it's just a simple vote to add, or?
The regular
It
meeting.
is a motion. So I'll make a motion that we add an item to the agenda, which is the continuation of budget deliberations. And Ms. Allard will second, and I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous by those present. Okay. Sean, turn it over to you.
Wait a second. Do I have to?
Is there another one?
No.
Okay.
Okay. It says ready to share. Oh, it's shared, okay. So I'll do some zooming in. This will be the only hard part with doing it up here, I think. But, and if folks want to move around, or I don't know if it's easier to see from different locations. But I'll start with revenues. And so can everyone see this as well as could be expected here? All right. So following the meeting we had last on Thursday, we talked about departmental revenues. Jim Jascott and I went through a second time and made a few more adjustments that we are comfortable with, and I can walk through those if you'd like to. I don't know if we need to spend the time for now, but in big picture, we're able to adjust our departmental revenue assumptions upward by about $483,500 in total. Again, I have those open on another tab if you'd like me to go through each of them, but large part of that, if you recall, we had the investment income adjustments. We had building department of $100,000. I think investment income was about $200,000. That makes up the bulk of that, and then other departments kind of filled in the gaps there. And again, if you'd like me to go through those one by one, happy to do it. But as a reminder for our mill rate calculator, we build everything off of the revenue sheet and then a expenditure sheet, which we'll touch on what the superintendent presented a couple hours ago. And I'll just kind of show you where that leaves us from a mill rate standpoint.
One thing on the state aid, because you have a Blake, and I know we
Yeah.
don't know, but will we know in 2 weeks?
No, so that, yep, you're stealing my thunder. That was my next comment, but yes. So I was hoping also, the short answer is no. They're highly unlikely that a budget is adopted by the state in the next 2 or 3 weeks. In fact, almost, won't happen. Can guarantee that. So we won't know for sure. We did have some conversations with folks, connected up at the state, just trying to get some indications. Are we at all going to be made whole? We have two major components, you'll recall. We have a $250,000 loss from the ECS grant, and we have about a $580,000 loss from pilot funding. We have other components which we presented, right? We know we have the motor vehicle tax. We're not getting into those back because our mill rate is under the cap and all those. So for now, we're considering that just about $886,000. The indications are that, at least the way things stand now, and there's a lot of uncertainty, but the ECS piece of that $250,000 is so far unlikely to be restored unless they delay again the implementation of this overfunding. If you recall, from the state's perspective, we were overfunded from ECS, I think due to our population and population calculations and other factors dating back to about 2017, 2018. So in order for us to get that $250,000 back, they would have to extend another year the delay of the implementation of that overfunding of that backing off of what they calculate as the overfunding of ECS. So that piece I don't have a lot of confidence in right now, but anything could happen. There's no way to know for sure. It has been extended each year since 2017, 2018, so it could be another year, be a great year for that to happen. And if so, we'd pick up $250,000. I just can't sit here before April 24th and guarantee that. On the pilot, we had an interesting conversation, and part of I still have Jim looking kind of in depth into this and the calculation, because there's some things that don't quite square with us. It's largely explained to us that because our mill rate lowered from 35 mills to 27 mills, and because it's a payment in lieu of taxes, obviously the formula uses the mill rate as part of the formula. But it appears, from the way we're seeing the calculation come through, which doesn't quite square with what we understood always to be the case, is that they're not necessarily using our now increased values as what they're calculating that mill rate on to come up with the taxes that this payment is a admittedly somewhat small percentage of, but at least it would do what happened with every other property, where properties went up, property values went up, and our mill rate went down. But net, you're in the same rough ballpark. It is confusing to us why we would have lost $580,000 there, unless it's simply a timing mechanism with the
grand list year they use and the mill rate they use. Jim, I know this afternoon, was going back and forth with our assessor for a little more clarity on her understanding before he contacts Martin Haft at the state to try to get a more fulsome understanding of what exactly is going into that calculation. But again, that's what's in the governor's budget, so that's what we have to work with now. I think I could see it, it kind of depends on, like, we know we had a shift towards residential, right? So if you consider these properties somewhat like other commercially valued properties, I could see the shift being a little less. I could see us losing a few $100,000. This is just conceptually, because they're not, the highest increased value properties we had were single-family residentials. But nonetheless, the value on the prison property, the value on Legions of Christ property, the value on all of the other properties we get pilot that this is calculated off of, did increase as well. So it doesn't stand to reason that the entire $600,000, in my opinion, it makes sense from a math standpoint why we would have lost that much of pilot just because we lowered our mill rate from 35 to 27. Because we didn't do that in a vacuum. We did that because our values were increasing. So again, more to come on that. I don't want to belabor it, but for now, I'm not comfortable putting anything there. I guess you could put it in sort of the same category as item 3 there, which we talked about a little bit last time. This is the municipal revenue sharing account that we received funding for 2 years, finally budgeted for it, and then didn't get it in that 3rd year that we finally budgeted. Again, I'm holding a 0 there. We could make assumptions across either of those. Maybe it's a smaller amount, maybe it's none. But if we need to get kind of somewhere to a comfortable mill rate that we're ultimately applying, that's a factor we got to consider. Just quickly, the next 2 items, telecom pilot is just an adjustment to the information that Jim is comfortable with what we've received from telecom pilot in the past. He's comfortable with that going up about $15,000. And we have been accruing interest. Jim may have mentioned this at the last meeting. My energy saver is on. I'm gonna need a power cord here in a second. We have interest that's accrued in the Wallingford Solid Waste account, and that is in total $12,404. So we were going to apply that to this year's budget. We have the other years all programmed out. And then lastly, I would propose we take a portion of the annual gift from Elam Park. Remember, we get a large donation from Elam Park each year in support of police and fire, and also in fairness, because they don't pay taxes on their property. They do a voluntary gift, and it's traditionally gone split between police and fire. This year, in support of our police and fire budgets, where we know we have pressures, we have vehicles, we have other things that we're trying to do, I would recommend we take from that, and remember, we haven't received the check yet, but Brian, the CEO from Elam Park, confirmed with me that they'd be at least matching last year's, which I think was $210,000 each. And then maybe increasing that, because they did purchase another couple of houses, or at least one house on Fawn, but then remember, we lose the tax revenue from that, so there's a reason. Right, as long as they keep compensating, so we'll see. But that being said, that's $150,000, because that's $75,000 each from the police and the fire, roughly call it $210,000 that they would get. So they'd still receive $135,000 to go into the gift account, but this is something that I would recommend from the revenue side in a difficult budget year. And then this special ed, you may have heard the superintendent talk about special ed, SB 1511. That's an additional $211,000 if that bill passes and is signed, but it's money that is coming in this fiscal year. So it will help us with this surplus. The superintendent's confirmed for me it does not apply to next year, it doesn't roll over into next year. But as you think about the last line on here, using additional reserves, that's another thing that's now supporting. It's not in our current projections for surplus, and it would be then bolstered by another $200,000 if that comes to pass, which it looks, I think, pretty likely it will. And then the big one here at the bottom, I've left a gap there for some additional conversations, but additional use of fund balance. Remember, my budget included $1.25 million. I don't want to be any higher than we were last year. We were $2.25 million. That was supported by a strong surplus year. These are difficult times. We're trying to get this mill rate down. I'll show you in the next chart kind of where this leaves us, but if we increase that by $750,000 from 1.25 in my budget to $2 million, that's an additional $750,000 of revenue. for a total of 1.4 million on this page. I'll show you on the next page where it leaves us. I'm as comfortable, all things considered, yes. I mean, surely, we would love to not have to do this, but I'm just trying to show you after these where we end up with the mill rate, and then we can see how that informs further decisions. I'm gonna need a power cord. Do you think we have a USB-C? Is that one is? No, that one.
Can you use my laptop?
No.
You can't log into your account through?
No, not on this one, not with where it's all saved here. I have one in my office, by my desk, in the backpack. I'm sorry, Noel.
We're timing you,
Yeah, you're good, you're good.
Said it's in a backpack.
It's in the backpack. She knows with the back, in the backpack by the desk. Yeah. Thank you. Open the backpack. All right, moving on for as long as we can. It says, a few more minutes. On the expenditure side, so I'll skip ahead from general government to Board of Ed. This is the number that Jeff Solon just presented at our meeting at 6 o'clock. And then what I've done is bifurcate it the same way that he had it at the end of his budget document, which is the $2,021,000 that he presented on that handout, and then a $200,000 that assumes use of this non-lapsing account where surplus funds from their expenditure budget this year go into an account, and that's then utilized next year. And they can charge against that account, which means you can drop their budget by $2 million. I know it showed up on his sheet as revenue. I thought that was a little confusing to me, but.
Where did the 200,000 come from? Where those excess?
200,000, what they're saying is that they will be favorable this year in their expenditure budget by at least 200,000, and they would roll that in under state law. There's a specific provision that allows boards of education to roll over up to 2%, which of course would be 1.8 million on a $90 million budget. Boards of Ed can roll over if council approves and if the council authorizes the expenditures out of it. We did this last in 2020 during COVID.
So when you asked them, we had none of the $200,000. Now they're finding $200,000. Who knows it's not $800,000? How do we know?
It's not a question I can answer. I don't know, yeah. So this is just a proposal. This is the proposal they put forward, and those are certainly questions we can ask.
The comment that Jeff made tonight downstairs was that they allocate most of their accounts by April, and he was comfortable with saying that there would be 200,000 to roll over.
Right.
I'm just telling you that was the answer. He did answer the question.
Yep.
Everything
Okay.
is done on a kind of just a word basis. It's someone's word. I mean, there's no numbers. There's no back.
We see the numbers on the town side. We just don't see the numbers. Did you see any surplus last year?
Thank you.
I didn't see any. I'm talking about last year's budget. I mean, there's never any surplus. We never
Thank you
see
so
surplus.
much.
This is the first time, like Sean said, in 5 years. And that was COVID years.
I don't know if it's the first time. Did they have expenditure surplus this year or
I
not?
don't think it's the first time.
It would be the first, sorry, it would be the first time that we used the non-lapsing account since the COVID budget freeze year, where we then generated and applied those savings last year. And that was 200,000 that year. Plugging this thing in, sorry.
Pay no attention to that, man.
It's Mary. All right. Perfect. See, now we can do this all night, so this is great. We'll stay here for hours. Yeah, it's great. I'm sorry. All right, and then again, I'm going to get back up to general government, but as we talked about before, we have assumed a little more aggressive amortization usage of our bond premium. This comes from the Debt Service Reserve Fund that we just bolstered by another $1.7 million from the bond sale on Wednesday. And so I would suggest we use $300,000 of that to apply towards next year, probably the subsequent years' premium usage above and beyond anything that we had assumed already in the budget.
And Jim, that's just a number that Jim and I have come up with that we feel comfortable with, that gets us, over the next at least 10 years of usage of the debt service reserve. But just know you're either paying for it now or you're paying for it later. But we're dealing with a bridge that we're trying to cover here as well. So we'd recommend using $300,000 to lower our debt service this year by using that $5.8 million we have in reserve.
But I can rationalize that because we do front load our debt and we pay more off in the beginning years especially.
Exactly. All right, and then real quickly, I think we've already talked about before, $500,000 reduction in the million that I put in the budget for CNR. Historically, that's been the amount we've budgeted, or 1.1 or 1 million. But as we're anticipating, when we conclude this budget and start taking up the capital and CNR budgets, we will be approving less capital projects. This is less funding into the fund to pay for those projects. So that number you can move around. We could go a little far. You can't go any more than $1 million because that's what I put in the budget. But I cut that number in half and put 500,000. You'll see that on the next slide.
But we could, if we did cleanup during the capital process, and there was money that was from previous CNR projects, could we reappropriate that back into CNR for the current fiscal year?
Yeah, I mean, there are a handful of maintenance, Board of Ed, town maybe, CNR projects that have balances in them that haven't been used, and you could certainly reallocate that.
There's far fewer of those, of course, than CIP from capital. But CNR, there's certainly some that could fund some of those efforts we'd still like to do, but don't have the appropriation in what we end up adopting. All right, so then just to slide back up to the general government side, which of course we're closer to, these are the recommendations. Again, I'm trying to get, again, I haven't been directed to get to a specific number. I'm trying to get as far as we can go before you start feeling significant service pain. And again, we've all talked about a few areas that we could go. Some we may talk about on Thursday. There's recreation, there's a number of other areas that we could look to, but people would really feel and notice some of those service cuts. They'll notice some of these, as you'll see, but some of these actually stem off of even some of the comments we've received and some that we've talked about in past years as, is this really the year we should do X or Y? So I'll start at the top. We have a very, very robust, our side of the street medical insurance reserve. I've worked with Jim and Donna to look at what we would be comfortable with using a little more aggressively from the reserve. We've hedged this same rough amount in the last few years, and we've still come in on budget. And so we've been able, I don't know if that speaks to we've just more conservatively budgeted our upfront numbers, but we've gotten aggressive with this in the past. I'm sure some years it could whipsaw back, but we've actually exceeded these numbers from a positive standpoint, even in some years past when we've taken a little further from reserve. You'll notice our reserve keeps growing, even though we've probably had this exact same conversation every budget for the last 6 or 7 years. So I would recommend a $200,000 additional use to drop that medical reserve, to drop that medical insurance line by $200,000. All of these are placeholders, just to be clear, but these are just at least a starting point from some of the conversations we've had and others. So reducing the pool subsidy further, remember that's at $500,000 in this budget. Sorry, my cursor's right on it. I'm recommending a $100,000 reduction in our subsidy. That would have to be offset by increased pool fees or potentially pool cuts. I've looked through their budget. I don't see a lot of great places to cut in terms of staffing or maintenance or utilities, but I would put that back on, the rec department and Sheila and the team there at the pool to close that $100,000 gap.
Just quickly, at $100,000, what kind of fee increases would we be looking at? Just for an order of magnitude.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess order of magnitude.
I'd just like to understand that to see if, what that would mean for us to achieve that.
Yeah, in our budget books,
We don't have to do it now. We could talk about it later.
Yeah, I was about to say 7, so let me look. Oh, I think I have it right here. Hold on. We are. But I was just going to say, in terms of order of magnitude, it is, where's the pool budget? Jim, there it is.
$775, no, I recommended $809,000, because I already was asking them to try to find another $25,000 or $35,000. But let's just take, in a normal year, we generate we generate $800,000 in 2024, the entire year, in pool fees. So,
Some of those are individuals, some of those for groups and things like that.
yeah, and there would be right, we
So
would,
that's all right.
yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at, what is that?
So it's about a
8?
11% increase, something
10 to
like that.
15% tops, but, right, you might increase on non-residents higher, you might increase on passes.
It's manageable,
Yeah.
though. That's the point. It's not unreasonable. Okay.
No, and there's large amounts we get from swim meets and other things that maybe those haven't been increased in a few years, I'd leave it to them, but I think 100,000 is manageable without, again, everyone's we're taking pain points from various spots. All right, some of these I don't love doing, but again, in a very difficult year, just a reminder, our beautification budget actually is about $20,000. We have $10,000 for an annual service beautification project. Don's looking at me. I don't want the beautification folks after me.
They do have
but-
$18,000 currently in their.
And they do, and they haven't spent all of this year's. And so I would say they have an effort they can put forward. We can encumber some of those funds into next year. This is something I've talked about in conjunction with Andrew Martelli, and he recognizes where we are with this, and they were warned at their last meeting, I think, that there could come. So this is the warning coming to pass. A couple others, again, I'm not pretending these are popular, and they're small dollar amounts prospectively, but eliminating the fireworks at the Fall Festival, we pay $5,500 for those fireworks. Potentially something a generous sponsor or donor could step in and take over. But that's just something that I'm putting on the table.
And I would like to say, I'm comfortable with all of these, many of these, because I think we can make a push for more sponsors. For years, I sponsored with someone else the fireworks, probably 10 years straight.
Okay.
And I don't know where that changed, why it's done by the town now, but somewhere there's other corporate citizens in town
might step
that I
in.
think
Sure,
that
sure.
will participate. And I think we should just assume that we can go out there and get that done, as
Sure,
opposed to.
sure.
I talked to Yetta, and I said we will find people to sponsor it. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, so maybe eliminates the wrong word, but maybe sponsor, eliminate the town's support. Similarly, you'll recall, and I think Dina's liaison, I think Public Safety put forward a request this year for $3250 in addition to what they received last year. I'm just suggesting any new requests that way from a commission, we would potentially roll back in a difficult year. All right, some of these become items we haven't really talked about, but we do have trust funds for our other post-employment benefits. We historically used a little of those to support our medical benefit line because we do pay for retiree medical out of the operating budget. We have a small trust that again, it's not as fully funded as we'd like to see, or GASB would like to see it fully funded. Well, almost no town is, but we have a trust of about a combined $2 million. $2 million that we can rely on a little bit within reason. Remember, we pay as we go with our claims. We'd like to see that balance get higher, but I would be comfortable using $50,000 or maybe even a little more to support this year's budget because we are paying those retiree claims through our operating budget. Liability insurance, you probably heard Vin mention before the meeting that our consultants did ask us to budget an additional $5 million of what they call excess coverage for these nuclear claims, as they're calling, these lawsuits that result in these massive settlements. They'd like to see our overall coverage get up even higher. That's a cost of about $61,000 total. We split that 50-50 with the Board of Ed. We didn't do it last year. I mean, I'm not saying we're rolling dice. We are well covered, but there are these very rare, but when they do come up, there can be these massive claims that jury settlements can exist. We usually get our things settled long before they ever find a jury, but you just never know what the particulars of a situation could be. So again, I think even last year we had this proposal. We ended up not doing it last year either. But that $61,000 split is the $30,000 for the town. It would be another $30,000 for the Board of Ed as well from their budget. So I would delay doing that for another year. I did get good news earlier today. Folks that are familiar with our ambulance contract, Trinity got back to me today on the profit sharing. And if you recall last year, I think we had about $60,000 worth of profit, so we got $30,000 that we were able to kind of work into the budget. This year, they had about $160,000 worth of, $165,000 of profit, and we split that 50/50, and it comes off what we pay our, for our ambulance services. So we're getting a little over $80,000 back, which means we'll save that money this year in fiscal '25. But it encourages me to assume now we have a good track record here of getting at least 30, if not now $80,000 back. I did have a $20,000 assumption in our current budget, so I'm showing an additional $30,000, which is $50,000 assumption. Again, if we received 80 again next year, then that's another $30,000 we didn't anticipate getting, but that would be the recommendation, to bring that ambulance line down a little further.
I hate to say it, but there's people getting sick.
Yeah, it depends on who, insured transports and all that good stuff, but, and sorry to belabor some of these, but I know that we haven't talked about a lot of these, so I just want to make sure it's kind of eyes wide open with all of these. We appropriated another $4,000 tonight, $5,000 tonight for the opioid settlement funds. That brings us to a total of about $190,000 available. We've received $260 to date. We currently pay half of the substance abuse counselor's salary. That's $26,481 out of that each year. For 1 year, maybe 2 years, I would be comfortable paying 100% of that salary. It's eligible under the opioid grant. That would be another savings to us of $26,481. We could do that with $190,000. You could do that for nearly 4 years. I'm comfortable doing that as we try to bridge the gap, but obviously we'd have to eventually have plans to bring that back or decide what we're doing with that position in the future. And then the last one was literally just something I noticed the other day, going back through every line by line by line. When we had the council approved 2 months ago participation in the Naugatuck Hazard Mitigation Plan funding, I had asked Mike Glidden to budget for it. I probably also asked Jim Jascott to make sure we're budgeting for it. So it was I discovered it in both general services and in the planning department for 2632. So that one is the easiest cut up there. We have it budgeted in 2 spots. I know it's not a lot of money, but that's our share. No, it's our share over 2 years. It'll be that plus another year. So I was correct to budget for it twice. We just don't need to do it again until fiscal '27. And then the last would be, I believe I can find, now this starts to get harder, but I have some currently, I've frozen hiring for the last certainly few weeks as we've been having this discussion. We have some vacant and recently made vacant part-time positions, 1 vacant full-time position that I think, and I don't really want to get into too many specifics right now, but I would come back to you, and maybe we can talk even Thursday or the next meeting about where I would find that. But I can find, I think, another $165,000 without major impacts. Again, some departments would be losing a part-time position. They have reasons they need that position, or they filled that position in the past. Yeah, right. The good thing with these positions is they're currently vacant. So the last thing I want to do is either hire someone and then tell them their position's eliminated in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or cut an active position. Right now, we're fully staffed in our police department. You cut a police officer position, that's somebody in the academy right now, frankly. That's somebody we're already, until the next retirement, that's somebody we're funding. So that's not in this. But I have currently vacant positions and a few other cuts and Social Security adjustments and things that I can total $165,000. So I said I'd try to go quickly, but that totals $628,000 of town cuts. As I said before, Board of Ed, $2.2 million. We talked about debt service and capital non-recurring. So where does that leave us? So over on the, yep, please.
I just want to make sure I understand, because Jim and I spoke separately. I asked him to just look into this substantial amount of money that was being used by the Board of Education for health insurance and related funding that doesn't seem to be flexible. And he did check into it, and it's legitimate in terms of and there's reasons for it, et cetera. Some of it has to do with the uniqueness of their programs, et cetera. We have a substantial retirement fund account, which accumulates money every year. I don't know, it's well managed, it's done. Is there, and I know it's controlled money, is there anything in there that can be utilized to offset any of those costs?
You're talking about pension or OPEB funding, Jim?
I think that's the 50 that you put in here.
That's only.
Okay, so that would be, right, if it's.
I was hoping a much more substantial number, that's why.
So it
We're
is.
talking about $100 million account there, so.
No, so those are our pension funds,
And they're-
and
they're-
those are being used effective. So the way our actuaries calculate how much we have to put forward each year it's assuming certain returns from that. So we are effectively budgeting the gains, hopefully annual gains from that large fund is less that we have to put in our actuarial, I hate that word, defined contribution each year. So those are effectively budgeted. There's no addition, we couldn't kind of lean on those funds any further, or you'd upset the 30-year trajectory of getting back to fully funding our pension plans. The OPEB funds that I talked about before, the other post-employment benefit, medical, there's only a handful of cases. We have, for instance, there's police that can have retiree coverage before reaching age 65. And they have a certain program called the VIBA program where they are paying into it too, remember, as officers if they're in the program, or they will, will be.
The town has a very small post-retirement benefit if you retire prior to age 65.
Very small liability. But that fund does have $2 million in it, so that's where I recommended using $50,000. We could get more aggressive with that. I wouldn't go too crazy, but I could see taking another 50 or 100,000 if we needed to.
We've been doing mostly pay-as-you-go as opposed to funding those trust funds because we really haven't had a lot of experience even on a pay-as-you-go basis. Most of our employees work to age 65 or beyond that, and so we haven't had a lot of.
So is that 165 that you showed us, the possible staff cuts or staff reductions there?
Yep.
Did that?
We're still live, so to speak.
Yeah, we had, when we were talking to Chief Drive, he had pointed out some consolidation in the records department.
Yep,
So
that one's in there.
That was in there? Okay.
Yeah, that $27,000, I think, is in there. Yep. No, you're fine. So if you take those assumptions, so just a reminder, I know I'm kind of zooming in here because it's so small on the screen, but you take all of those increases, or well, all decreases in this side here, these all feed from those prior tabs. That leaves you with, this would be your expenditure budget. I'm going to get to the mill rate in just a second, but this would be, the general government side would be now an increase of 2.33%. Remember, I was just under 4%. I have it in front of me for my budget. The Board of Education would be a 4.46% increase, down from their 6.92, I think, 94. These others don't. Well, this one doesn't change. Well, no, it does. Debt service does change, down because it's pulling from that other 300,000. Capital and recurring would be budgeted at 500,000, so that's a reduction of 600,000. And then you see the contingency adjustment there. So our overall budget would be a 4.73% increase, largely driven by debt service there, but obviously debt service Board of Ed from a size standpoint. I talked about fund balance. This will be my last thing before I get to the mill rate. But we walked through this last meeting. This is where we are now. I think we just had the question about where this would leave us if we take the additional 750. So this cell is tied back to that assumption we made on the revenue side. We'd start at 13.19%. This is the result from what we expect this year, about $1 million, little $1.1 million of surplus. That leaves us here. We get to 18.5 million to start the year. And then my budget assumed 1.25 million, and then we just talked about an additional 750. So you would still be we would be lower than we are now, but we would still be at just under 12%. And our policy is 10%. But that's an area, as I talked about, the rating agencies and others, we try not to see that trend too far in the wrong direction, of course, but that seems like a balance. They didn't want to see us increase our use of reserves any further than we did last year. So that's sort of the upper limit, which we would not be doing here, which is good. So last, the mill rate, where this leaves us, unfortunately still have a ways to go to, well, it depends on where your target is, but I've put in, this is calculating the blue square, which is 29.87 mill rate, if we do everything that we just talked about. This yellow one, remember, is adjustable. I've made them match so you can see the impact of that would be 714 for the average taxpayer, an 8% tax increase, so down from our 13 or so percent. We had talked about, I think with the sort of straw poll before, about what would it be to cut it in half. So 2931 was a half increase that we put on the screen last time, and I apologize, it's so small, but I'll try to get to where you can see it there. That was what we had discussed around the table at a prior workshop, is at least a target if we could possibly get there. So of course, how far are we from that? We are still 2.2 million away from that number, or 0.56 mils. This is where that $1 million of state aid would really come in handy, or more. So I guess I'll sort of end it there.
Sean, just when you say
Yep.
average taxpayer, typically, but this year, the average taxpayer, their automobile taxes will probably drop.
Yeah.
But it's the proper, their homes will increase.
Yeah.
So people are addicted. So a lot of the people with rentals are, their car tax is gonna be dropping, but it's the homeowners.
Yeah, it is true. And again, I think as I was saying, I'm still trying to make sure all, we experienced, because the night that we didn't adopt the more, or the less aggressive depreciation schedule, we did talk about that reduction. You'll recall, I still had it, because our mill rate increase was proposed so high, it still showed an increase, slight, but it showed an increase of, I think it was $30 or $40 on 2 vehicles. We've now shifted to where that is a decrease, yet right now it's $16 off compared to $5.51 for the property. The further you go down in the mill rate, the more dramatic, of course, that will come down. But it is true that, Don, to your point, the value of the average vehicle dropped on average $1,000. That's the difference between these two. So they are certainly not going to see that same increase in the mill rate apply to their car taxes. And even more so, there actually would be, in this calculation, a slight reduction. Everyone's individual case will be different. And I think we saw when we passed around paper, some folks had more dramatic reductions in their car values, so you would see more savings there.
Those numbers, Sean, on the right are based upon what now? Because you changed the mill rate, but I'm not sure did anything change on the right or just in that?
Yeah, these all change with the cells.
So that's based on
The new mill rate.
the new one you're just proposing or going down further?
Oh, good question. It is the yellow one, the
So that's
target.
That's it.
Yes, thank you.
You're
Yep.
at 29, could we
Yep,
just
yep,
see
yep.
29?
Yeah, what would that be? Sure.
I didn't know if those changed as well.
Yeah, so that's where this difference is $714. They do, because that's how I calculate this green one over here. So that 714 or 715 is the difference between these two totals. So this is an average, and remember, this is for 2, so this means the average property tax on a vehicle is currently $350, and it would drop to in this case, $48 or $49. But the large, as I said, as you lower the mill rate further, not only are you not seeing an increase in your motor vehicle, you are starting to see a slight decrease year over year, just based on the average.
So, Sean, going back to that 50% number that we just was arbitrary anyway, how many either revenue or decreases would you have to come up with?
About 2.2 million, 29.31, whoops.
Just to get to the 2931.
Yeah, it's right here in the middle, so 2219 gets you right on the nose. Rounding, of course, is about $40,000 because our mill rate is 2.2. So we need to find, right, and this is where I think, and maybe, I think Jeff and I on Thursday have been asked to sort of present kind of where things stand. I think he'd like to present, and I think it would make sense for us to present something like this as an update for the community.
And that's why I wanted to stay.
But it's up,
have
yeah.
Everybody here see it first, because then that sets the stage for the first 15 minutes. And I thought the council will sit up here, we'll let the Board of Ed sit in the front if they so choose. But where Lou is sitting now would be Dr. Solon, and Dr. Solon and Sean would present for 15 minutes, and then we turn over the podium for an hour to the public.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? Okay, thank you for the indulgement. I think it was important to go through this and walk through this, because we were hoping to get it done downstairs, but at least it gives us something to chew on before we start hearing from the public on Thursday. And then we will go to Arts Place after the meeting, and
Yes.
today, and
Yep.
all of the reductions that you presented just here, so that's something we need to highlight, that all these reductions have been made already, and what we're losing, even just to get to this.
Right. Yeah, just remember, we were roughly, I think it was a little over 7, almost 7.5 million that we felt we were away from, or that we knew we were away from that split mill rate. So we've generated that number in the middle, that $5 million, so we're 2.2 away, which is back to the same number we talked about. Sure.
It would be worthwhile to ask Jeff to please fully evaluate any excess funds from last year that we can use over as opposed to just the 200,000, because that's a place where we might get some big savings.
All right, so with that, I'll call for a motion. Fiona and Dave